Chapter 280, Prelude Outside of Nanxing Village. They definitely would never expect that we would return. Lei Peng looked at the newly rebuilt Nanxing village, his bearded face snickering. The other people all had strange expressions. No one had expected that Lil Tamis would sneak all the way to Nanxing village. However, they were full of enthusiasm about destroying the enemy's main base again. Everyone was drooling while staring at Nanxing village, howling as they charged at Nanxing village. Hopelessness floated onto the faces of the enemies. Golden Crow City. We have all kinds of talismans for all types of shouja, the offensive type, the defensive type, the supporting type. You can see them all. A good talisman can save your life at a critical moment, and they are not expensive. This is a special product of our city, 4th grade Golden Crow Fire. I think that I don't need to introduce this. If you have enough jingsher, we can provide you with an unlimited amount. Of course, something as good as this needs a price suitable for it. What you see right now is a top-secret talisman, Black Processing Meditation Mat. When you possess this, you do not need to worry about relying completely on Ling grains. What? You don't believe me? Oh, I can understand. No matter, what can be more effective than personally experiencing it? Out of consideration for our customers, we provide trial service. Please come with me, you do not have enough jingsher. Oh, I need to consider this. You know that all of our merchandise are good items that are in high demand. No shouja would be able to refuse this Golden Crow Fire. Black Processing Meditation Mat, oh, this definitely is a mighty talisman. Yes, it is not outrageous to use mighty to describe it. It can help you get rid of your reliance on Ling grains. Oh, so it's like that. I can understand your difficulties. Since you are so sincere, we can both move back a step. You can first borrow a batch of merchandise from our city, but it will not be a huge amount. I trust that you have the abilities to quickly sell all of it with your power. We will not interfere with how much you sell it for. I feel that the large profit involved is enough for your purchasing power to quickly increase in a short time. But considering that we do not have a history of cooperating together, you need to provide a guarantee. Anything can work. I see that your 4th grade flying sword appeared very good. Oh, a gentleman will not take another's items. Since it is so meaningful to you, then this one will not demand it. Then we only have one option, a lean through people. You only have to provide 100 people as collateral, we will have a great relationship. When the head came out of Golden Crow City, he shook his slightly inflated head. That slender bamboo rod really knew how to talk. Those good items still seemed to be swaying in front of his eyes. The cold wind that blew against his face cleared his mind. Looking at the faraway mountain peak, he took a deep breath. He knew an outrageously good opportunity was in front of him. If he could catch this chance, his strength would quickly go up a few levels. Xu Long carefully listened to the voice that came out of the necklace. However, the person who was speaking this time seemed to be arguing with someone. They can only cultivate Mo, they can't do what the Yao do. Xu Long was very familiar with this voice that was always slightly scornful. It was this one that had taught them how to cultivate. Boss subordinate was so mysterious, he had never shown his true face. However, he didn't dare interrupt. This Darren's temper was not good. Oh, you aren't wrong. The boy is even more outrageous now. We can't let him continue to be so smug. We are people of status. Okay, we can try what you suggest. Listening to this Darren talk to himself, Xu Long perceptively stayed silent. Xu Long, the necklace passed through the Darren's call. He hurriedly responded, this one is here. From today onwards, the cultivation plan is being changed. Yes. Xu Long did not argue or object. They would cultivate whichever way Darren said to. Before this, they didn't know anything about cultivation. Darren listed all the places that needed to be modified in detail. Xu Long noted all of them down. When he met places he did not understand, he would ask for clarification. Pu Yao clearly was very satisfied with Xu Long's attitude, but he still added, "Oh, you need to supervise them. With your turtle speed, when will you even cultivate to an acceptable level?" "Yes." Xu Long seriously answered. "Especially that, Crow Fiend Mo killing formation, you need to rehearse it well." In the tunnel, Zhua Mo wiped the sweat off his forehead, a satisfied expression on his face. The four sides of the tunnel had to be carved with formations to create a complete formation. The amount of work Zhua Mo had to complete this time was vast. The 9 formation belts interlocked together, each of them with a 4th grade formation as the core, and 13 3rd grade formations set up in the perimeter. 9 4th grade formations, 117 3rd grade formations. He almost didn't even dare to think about it. But he still gritted his teeth and started. If he couldn't charge out of here, he would die in here sooner or later. He had struggled greatly when setting up these formations. Every day, his ling and spiritual power were greatly used exhausted. However, his labor hadn't been wasted. He had finished 1/3 of it. Thinking about it, he felt it was impossible. He had never completed so much before. Releasing a long breath, the golden threads of fire flying in the air were as mischievous as pixies and flew in front of him. In the firelight, he looked at the female Xiao nearby. She stood there motionlessly like wood. There was a mask on her face again. Zhua Mo had reforged a black mask for her. Her eyes were gray and empty, only flashing with the purple light when she was fighting. This woman who was covered in mysteries. Looking at her, Zhua Mo's thoughts wandered. "Who are you?" He shook his head hard and threw away these stray thoughts. Right now, he needed to think how to finish the big formation. For him, he had never thought of such a large formation belt before. From the planning to fruition, it had been all completed by him. Every time he thought of it, his blood heated up. When Ji gets this done, what heroes pass, what sect Jinji, all of that is nothing. He gathered 120% of his mental effort and went back to his work. In the forging division, Sun Bao wiped away the sweat and said with a grimace to Ji Wei, "Boss pace is too astonishing, we really have it hard." Ji Wei could only grimace along. "What can we do? I don't know if boss is made out of metal or something. We forged so many parts, he shouldn't be so fast even if he was eating them." The two could only grimace at each other before bending down to forge. Gong Sun Cha looked at Nanxing village under his feet that had been once again turned to ruins, his face expressionless. He knew this was only the start. It was like a war that had just started. The following battles would be their true test. "Darren, where are we going now?" Xia Shan asked with anticipation. He was totally won over by this head who was much lower in cultivation than him. Boss and Lil Miss ages were not high, but why were they so strong? Supposedly, they were disciples of the same sect. It was very rare to see such strong disciples at such a young age. The ambush this time was not as fierce as last time, but this kind of disciplined style made Xia Shan feel very good inside. In such a short period of time, everyone had made such large improvements. He felt it was incredible when he thought back. The other people looked towards Lil Miss with anticipation. When Lil Miss personally led the troops, he would always give them unexpected surprises. Didn't they create cadet halls? Pick one to start with. Gong Sun Cha's face had a rare cold expression, his tone murderous. This group of battle maniacs instantly became excited. Only a rare few realized the abnormality of the mission this time and from Lil Miss' unusual attitude. They looked at each other. Was the final battle going to start? Sky Water Jia, a grand yard filled with grass and ling beasts frolicking about. In the very center, there was an ancient copper diffuser as high as a person. Beside the stove, there was a middle-aged Xiuzha sitting cross-legged on a meditation mat, surrounded by the smoke. Suddenly, a paper crane flew out of the sky and landed in front of the middle-aged Xiuzha. The middle-aged Shouja opened their eyes, and looked at the paper crane with a surprised expression. He hurriedly opened the paper crane. After carefully reading it over, he sank into deep thought. After a while, he raised his head. His finger flicked and a sword light flew out. Shortly after, a female Shou flew in front of the middle-aged Shou, and bowed slightly. "Why has Darren summoned me?" The female Shou wore deep red Ling armor, her features pretty and her mannerisms restrained. "Do you know the situation of Little Mountain Jie?" the middle-aged Shouja asked solemnly. "I know some." "Oh, speak." "Little Mountain Jie is managed by Clear Sky sect presently. After the Yao army passed through, the Ling energy there has withered. Many Shouja have become trapped inside because the Clear Sky sect blockades the Jie River." The female Shou paused slightly. "The Hundred Flowers Alliance and other sects have relationships with Clear Sky sect, and have made private transactions. Clear Sky sect's guts isn't small." The face of the middle-aged Shouja was slightly heavy. "It looks as though they want to turn Little Mountain Jie into their own private property." "Who's the leader of Clear Sky sect right now?" "It is Clear Sky Old Forefather." "That old man," the middle-aged person said with a smirk. "There naturally will be people to sort him out." The female Shou did not speak and waited silently. The middle-aged person took out a token and threw it to the female Shou. "Go pick 200 people to go with you to Little Mountain Jie. With this token, that old person will not block you." "What is this subordinate's mission?" "You only need to accomplish one matter this time," the middle-aged Shouja said. "Stars in daytime appeared in Little Mountain Jie, you will go investigate this matter." "Stars in daytime," the female Shou had a shocked expression. "Yes, it has also appeared once in Sky Moon Jie. There is most likely a connection between these two occasions. You have to pay special attention to those Shouja that escaped from Sky Moon Jie to Little Mountain Jie. If we find this person, what should I do?" the female Shou, bowing. "Bring them back," the middle-aged person said. "I understand." Chapter 281, Gradual Advance. Nanxing Village had been destroyed again. This was like a peerlessly loud slap that landed heavily on He Xiang's face. He Xiang felt a rush of blood rush up his throat and he almost fainted. The expressions of the other elders were also terrible. They had achieved great victories recently, and saw the hope of survival. But at this time, they were hit over the head with a stick. "Who? Motherfucking who?" an elder lost control of his emotions, and shouted at the top of his lungs. "It definitely is that group. It has to be them." The crowd was furious. All of the elders were like a pack of wolves that were pushed to the precipice, their faces red as they breathed heavily. He Xiang steadied his mind. He tried to calm himself down. He raised a hand and stopped the shouts of the elders, saying, "We need to retaliate. A hard counterattack. Old Forefather is watching at us. All of Little Mountain Jie is watching us. If we are so easily defeated, no one will listen to us again. Old Forefather will lose his last thread of patience, and we will be finished. Catch them. Defeat them. At any cost." He Xiang gritted through his teeth. "The final battle has started. This is our final battle. This battle will determine if we live or die." No one spoke. The eyes of every elder were red, their faces twisted. Ji Wei and Sun Bao carefully entered the tunnels. Their eyes uncontrollably looked at the complex formations on the walls of the tunnels with intoxicated expressions. They were like unworldly country bumpkins that had entered the city for the first time, feeling as though their eyes were not enough to take in the sights. Their gasps occasionally rang out in the silent tunnels. "Look at this, it can be interlocked like this." Ji Wei pointed at a place, and praised. "I don't know what is inside Boss' head that he can think of a solution like this." "Yes." Sun Bao replied, but his gaze didn't bear to move away. "Boss learning in formations is growing deeper." "Oh, I feel that boss might be able to get a Formation Grandmaster medal to play with, Ji Wei said. Boss won't be interested, Sun Bao got a hint, and contentedly shifted his eyes away. What use is that Formation Grandmaster Jade medal to boss? Will boss depend on it for his meal ticket? We should probably get some so that we won't end up without the qualifications to be boss assistants. Look at these formations, they are as beautiful as a picture. There's nothing to say about boss' skill with fire. I say that if boss forged, we could only be his assistants. Think about it, how old is boss? Hearing this, Ji Wei nodded emphatically. You are right. We need to work on the little group of brats. AI, it would be great if they had half the talent of boss. Sun Bao smiled scornfully and said, half of his talent, don't dream. We aren't young people, but have you ever seen someone as monstrous as boss? Heavens, he isn't a person. He built this Golden Crow city by himself, and used fire forging methods. You might not have noticed, but I was dumbstruck on the spot. Ji Wei nodded with empathy. Yes, I was also stunned. Even with all of us assisting, we almost didn't manage to keep up the supply. I didn't sleep well any of those days in fear we couldn't keep up. Boss's fire paper technique, TSK, it is a pleasure to see, I didn't want to move away. Sun Bao snickered. Everyone is the same. Who has seen such wonderful fire forging technique? It is enough to scare me to death. And those formation battle watchtowers. 36 towers. Motherfucker, we're lucky boss is boss. If it was any other person, everyone else would lose their meal ticket. With the city, and the formation battle watchtowers, our Golden Crow city is probably unique among Little Mountain Jia, Jia Wei said, full of pride. Of course. Sun Bao also had a proud expression. He looked around, and then lowered his voice to say, but from what I see, boss might not stay in Little Mountain Jia. Look at these tunnels, this formation belt. It is very big. Other than Jin Dan, I can't think of anyone who needs such preparations. Ji Wei was silent for a moment before saying, in any case, I'm planning on going with boss. I'm not young anymore, I see the world clearly. There's nothing to say about how boss treats us. As to the other, life and death, I'm too lazy to think. Your words are wasted on me, Ji Wei said unconcernedly. No one among us will run now. If any of the brats dare run, watch me break his legs. I'm confident in boss. Just this Little Mountain Jia cannot trap boss. Then why are you saying this? Ji Wei glanced at the other out of the corner of his eyes. Sun Bao said excitedly, aren't you excited? We are going to deal with a Jin Dan. Jin Dan. Ji Wei rolled his eyes, and said rudely. You're a pretty old person, why are you still so childlike? Quick, stop wasting time. We need to deliver this to boss, he's waiting. You aren't excited at all. Jin Dan, that is a Jin Dan, oh, very excited. You aren't excited at all, how can you not be excited? You, since you have this much energy, go back and forge some more black processing meditation mats. The slender bamboo almost can't meet the demand. Bao Yi looked at the mountains of jingsher and materials in the storeroom and his face blossomed. Boss was right. The domino effect was really too fast. After that head had left, several more group of shouja had arrived shortly after. Some people had bought black processing meditation mat from others, and then came in search of more. Others were just passing by. They had to thank the outer hall. As the outer hall pushed forward, the shouja along the way continued to retreat and run. Consequently, many shouja would pass by Golden Crow City. Every shouja that passed by would gape when they saw Golden Crow City, so shocked they would almost drop from the sky. And what the city was selling made everyone go crazy. The appearance of the black processing meditation mat was a great explosion. The number of people that came to buy black processing meditation mat every day was so much they had lined up. It wasn't realistic for each person to buy one. Usually it was a group and they would buy a few dozen each time. About 3 people would share a single mat and could satisfy their daily needs. However, the direct result of the black processing meditation mat was the jingshi that everyone had thrown to the side before increased in value. With the black processing meditation mat, jingshi was equivalent to ling grains. Many shouja couldn't bear to use jingshi to purchase, and mostly traded using materials. So all kinds of materials flooded towards Golden Crow City, causing Bao Yi to increase the standard for taking in materials. Bao Yi's face was flushed, his mind excited. He had been a black market dealer for so long, but had never done business like this. What he was selling now would directly change the situation of Little Mountain Jie. He felt so happy he was going to faint. The supply was not keeping up with demand, and gave him enough space to express black to its limits. Talismans, materials, jingshi. We'll take them all. Expensive? Oh, very sorry, we don't have discounts. The feeling of richness that he never had before took over his entire body. His life like this, what else could he ask for? The sky was dark and bloody, the ground was barren. This was a certain place in Bloody Sky Metropolis Jie. A troop of Yao camped surrounding a spring that looked like fresh blood. This was a blood spring. Blood springs were frequently seen in Bloody Sky Metropolis Jie. For Yaoma, blood springs were very good places. Yao could use it to calm their energies, and Mo could directly consume the spring blood to recover their strength. But for shouja, blood springs were a terrible place. The closer it was to the blood spring, the more brutal and restless the ling power was. The spring blood of the blood spring was also a fatal poison for shouja. If shouja under Jindan came into contact with the slightest bit of it, they would be poisoned. If they were not careful, they would die. This troop of Yao was about 1,000 people. How far away are we from Little Mountain Jie? The leading commander asked. About 15 days of travel, his vice commander hurriedly said. Suddenly, a bead on the bracelet on his wrist lit up with a blue light. He made a light sound. Blue hyacinth. Orders from the Elder Council. He took down the bead glowing with blue light and threw it onto the ground. Pia. As the bead landed, it burrowed into the ground. Quickly, a blue plant grew with speed visible to the naked eye, flowered, and produced fruit. From beginning to end, it took just 2 breaths. The blue fruit produced a faint blue mist. The mist moved and roiled, forming an old face. Sir Tiansheng, after the discussion of the Elder Council, you have been commanded to move your division at the fastest speed possible to Little Mountain Jie, take over and hold the Jie River of Little Mountain Jie to Sky Water Jie, and are not permitted to fail. Yes. Tiansheng gravely responded. Pa, the mist dissipated. This blue hyacinth quickly withered and turned to dust. With a gust of wind, nothing was left. Send the order down. Gather immediately to travel, Tiansheng said gravely. Yes, the vice commander hurriedly followed the order. Tiansheng was still thinking over the order just now. In all the military orders of the Yao military, only the orders from the elder sect could use blue hyacinths. In other words, this order had come directly from the Elder Council. This kind of situation was extremely rare, and the first time he had encountered it. Something definitely had happened in Little Mountain Jie. Even though they had not rested for long, and everyone had not recovered from their exhaustion, the good discipline of the Yao military was fully expressed now. They quickly packed up. Little Mountain Jie, travel at our fastest speed. Dong Cheng idly stretched out. It was very hard to be able to live such an idle life in Little Mountain Jie. He was secretly proud of his perceptiveness. As the first faction to submit to the Outer Hall, he became the example, and was put in charge of the first cadet branch of the Outer Hall. The first one of the Outer Hall. He narrowed his eyes, and enjoyed the sunlight falling on his face. Just this name was enough for him to have a good life in the future. Even though each month's jobs were not light, but it was a great improvement over his past life. Oh, he had to make a request for a batch of show slaves from the main hall. Suddenly, a subordinate stumbled into the yard and shouted in panic, "Darren! Darren! It's not good, it's not good." Dong Cheng's dream was disturbed, and he was very discontent. He furrowed his brow. "What are you panicking about? I haven't died yet. It's not good. Darren. It really isn't good." Say, what isn't good? Dong Zheng was even more discontent. He decided that if this guy couldn't mention a great matter, he would punish the other well. "Someone has attacked us, my ass." Dong Cheng snorted. "In Little Mountain Jia, no one dares to come to our outer hall too." His voice suddenly stopped, his body freezing as he looked dazedly at the sky. In the sky, a troop was looking down at them. Suddenly thinking of something, Dong Cheng's face was drained of blood in an instant, his limbs went cold. Chapter 282, Fire Sickle Rock. It wasn't the first time Rong Wei came to Little Mountain Jia, but when she saw how damaged Little Mountain Jia was, she was still shocked. The house guards that came with her were also shocked. Clear Sky sect isn't really a good thing. "Look at Little Mountain, what have they done to it?" someone muttered. "Yes, they will be punished by the heavens. Is the Marquis going to move against Clear Sky sect?" Don't guess randomly. Listening to the mutterings of her subordinates, Rong Wei did not speak. Her mind was slightly unfocused. After a moment, she refocused. She hadn't seen Clear Sky Old Forefather. The Marquis token had been presented, and they were let into Little Mountain Jia. She could clearly feel the nervous mood of Clear Sky sect. She heard that someone had encountered something. Had something happened again in Little Mountain Jia? The incident of stars in daytime in Sky Moon Jia had disturbed many people at the time. She knew that the Marquis had paid special attention to the matter. Even though she had been brought up by the Marquis from childhood, she rarely saw the Marquis so concerned over a matter. The origins of the Marquis were deep and mysterious. She had never seen him attend to the major matters that occurred in Sky Moon Jia, but for the first time, she had seen a grave expression on Marquis' face concerning the stars in daytime. This was the second time, and was also due to the stars in daytime. There were many jade scrolls and old records in the Marquis compound. Growing up from childhood in the compound, Rong Wei's knowledge was much wider than the great majority of Shouja. She knew a bit about what stars in daytime meant. She felt slightly puzzled. The impression that Marquis usually gave her was that of an idle person. She couldn't help but feel nervous that he was so concerned about such a matter. She focused, and slowly said, "Let's go." The compound guards instantly closed their mouths. Miss Rong was not of Marquis' legitimate line, but in terms of favor, she was first in the compound. Also, Miss Rong had not failed the Marquis teachings, and was outstanding in all areas since childhood. It was just that she rarely left the compound, so her reputation was not known. The compound guards, regardless of their experience, were all respectful when they saw her, and didn't dare to do any posturing. Rong Wei's head started to hurt. Where should she start investigating the stars in daytime? Jiang Hao looked at the most wanted list and drooled, "Big brother, we are going to get rich now." The other people also showed undisguised greed. Jiang Wei was also swallowing hard, but he was calmer than his younger brother. Whenever he thought of that strange and terrifying female show, he would sink into deep terror. "Don't forget about that female show." His voice was hoarse. The surroundings became deathly silent. Terror was imprinted on everyone's eyes. After seeing that silent massacre, 3 among them had their cultivation collapse due to long-term terror. The wails before their death still seemed to echo in their ears. The flames of greed in everyone's eyes were doused by a bucket of cold water. Jiang Hao shook. He forced a smile and said, "The one that will go find them is the outer hall." No matter how powerful the female show is, she is just one person. His voice became increasingly light, and his face increasingly pale. No matter how many the benefits are, we will need to live to experience them. Jiang Wei's eyes were bloodshot, and he said gravely, since the outer hall is searching for them, they will be able to find them. The collision between the two sides is beneficial to us. Maybe we can even leave this damned place. Brother, you think too highly of them, Jiang Hao said with a forced smile. It's not that I think highly of them, but I hope they can do it, Jiang Wei sighed. The other people were silent. In Zhuo Mo's vast tunnels, the surroundings were filled with formations. His heart was excited. Finished. He finally finished. To set up such a large formation just with his power, he had enough to be proud of. Thinking it over, working day and night, only he knew how difficult it had been. Starting from when he began building Golden Crow City, he had never truly thought he could finish it. The increasingly tense situation was like an invisible whip continuously urging him to be faster. When it truly was finished, Zhuo Mo felt he was in a dream. Is this real? He suddenly turned and asked the female show. The female show didn't seem to hear and didn't respond. Zhuo Mo snickered and was not concerned. He muttered to himself. Please don't let this be a dream. In this period of time, his consciousness had improved greatly, his skill with fire deepening with every day so that the later portion of his work had been completed quickly. With his previous skill level, it wouldn't have been possible to complete such a vast project without using the better half of a year. Pu Yao hadn't lied to him this time. He had improved greatly through the entire process of building the city, so much that even he was shocked. The jade metal head had entered third maturation. What excited him the most was that his consciousness had grown more than 3 times. Right now, he felt as though he was a basin of water, with so much water that it was almost overflowing. His consciousness probably wasn't far from a breakthrough. He also had a feeling that if his breakthrough could succeed this time, the degree of improvement would be very large. Looking at the surroundings, Zhuo Mo was suddenly filled with confidence. Even if what he was facing was a Jin Dan. Right now, there was only one thing left to do. Zhuo Mo didn't tell anyone the work had been completed, but the first person who felt the effects was Bao Yi. The supply of black processing meditation mats couldn't keep up with demand. Bao Yi felt proud, but also frantic. Yet suddenly the production of black processing meditation mat increased dramatically. He perceptively realized what had happened. Only if Boss did not require any supplies on his side, then the people of the forging division would be able to put all their effort into making black processing meditation mats. Of the 2 most famous products of Golden Crow City, one was Golden Crow Fire, the other was black processing meditation mat. Other than the batch that Bao Yi deliberately held back, the remaining Golden Crow Fire had all been sold. Only Boss could make Golden Crow Fire. Now that no one could find Boss through the day, who had the time to hope he could produce Golden Crow Fire? Golden Crow City only sold one product now, black processing meditation mats. The wondrous ability of the black processing meditation mat spread throughout Little Mountain Jia like it had wings. Countless shouja flooded from all areas towards Golden Crow City. In a dusky mine shaft, Lilith Pagoda floated in the air like a dutiful supervisor as it directed those puppets to continuously work. The abnormal change had frightened the timid Lilith Pagoda half to death. Even though Zhuo Mo had not scolded it, it still expressed an attitude of fulfilling its duties well. This caused the production of Jingshi and/or recently to grow dramatically. The cheer on Bao Yi's face had grown even more. Suddenly, a copper puppet stopped what it was going, looking dazedly at the strange item in front of it. Lilith Pagoda instantly detected the abnormality, and hurriedly flew over. It was a bright red rock that exuded a strange presence. Lilith Pagoda tilted its head and looked with puzzlement at this piece of red rock. Zhuo Mo instantly received the information Lil Pagoda passed over and rushed over. Since Lil Pagoda was connected to Zhuo Mo, this rock is strange. Zhuo Mo went over and tapped it. The red rock was the size of a table and appeared like a piece of red jade, spreading threads of warmth. However, what was most unique was that it contained strong vitality. If one came close, they could make out the sound of a heartbeat. Was this something alive? Suemo felt it was so fantastical. After circling the rock and thinking hard, he couldn't think of what this red rock really was. Puyao, what is this? Suemo ran over to ask Puyao. Puyao sat in front of the gravestone and resting, acting as if he was ignoring Suemo, seeing Puyao's state. Suemo understood that this guy was in a mood. However, he had long forgotten what he had done. A real man could bow and scrape, GE will endure. Suemo piled on the smiles. Puyao, you are a honored Sky Yao, what are you doing holding a grudge against a little character like me? Go, oh no, if this little brother has done something wrong, please have tolerance. Puyao's eyes were still closed, and there was no movement, but Suemo noticed that Puyao's spine had straightened slightly. It worked. Puyao, you are a millennia-old Sky Yao. The breadth of your mind, the composure, it is as wide as the sky, as deep as the ocean, your knowledge, your, okay. Stop with the flattery. Puyao's expression was impatient, but the smile at the corner of his mouth revealed his pleased mood. Suemo mocked him inside. As expected of a 1,000-year antique. He bent under just this little bit of flattery. He piled on a fawning smile, some guidance. Puyao gave a light cough before slowly drawling, it's not embarrassing that you haven't seen this before. There aren't many shouja that have seen it. This is fire sickle rock. After absorbing the essence of moon and sun for a long time, it has borne an intelligence. If nothing had changed in Little Mountain Jia, this piece of fire sickle rock would just be an earthly treasure about 5th grade. Then now? Suemo perceptively asked. Presently, the Ling energy of Little Mountain Jia has withered, and the power of the chaos has risen. But since this piece of fire sickle rock has an intelligence, it couldn't absorb Ling power, so it absorbed the power of chaos instead. Suemo didn't understand. Power of chaos? Chaos is the originator of all power. No matter if it is Shouja, Yao, or Mo, power comes from chaos. But because everyone walks a different path, the result is completely different. What Yaomua do is to go with the flow, while Shouja chose to resist. The Ling power of the Shouja is a natural enemy to the power of chaos. You mean he became a Yaomua? Suemo pointed at the rock and asked with shock. Become Yao. Puyao was clearly smug. There is a fire Yao being nurtured here, but before it comes out, I don't know what kind of fire Yao. The intelligent souls of flora will become Yao, the intelligent souls of wild beasts will become Mo. If you throw Ling beasts into a place like Bloody Sky Metropolis Jia, and after corrosion by the power of chaos, it will become Mo. Suemo was slightly disappointed. So it's just a Yao, then shouldn't I kill the Yaomua? Puyao's face instantly became black. Who are you killing? Suemo shook. He remembered the guy in front of him was a Sky Yao. He smiled, joke. He then said, I'm just too disappointed. I thought I dug up a treasure, and didn't expect it was something useless. Who says it is useless? Puyao was clearly slightly excited. You just don't know it. Treasure, even if it was put in front of you, you won't recognize it. Then what is the use? Suemo hurriedly asked. Puyao closed his mouth and made a proud posture. Suemo wasn't tricked. He took out a flying sword from the ring, and moved it to the fire sickle rock. If I can't use it, I can't let other people have it. So let's kill it. Seeing the situation, Puyao said, Fire Yao isn't too different than your Ling beasts. You can use some of its abilities. Oh, so that's it, but I don't know how. Just drip blood. Once Puyao finished, he knew he was tricked. As expected, Zhuemo cheerfully turned the flying sword and swiped across his finger. He squeezed out a drop of blood onto the fire sickle rock. Chapter 283, Lil, Fire. The red light of the fire sickle rock exploded forth, and the temperature rose drastically. After a while, the red light started to flicker, and with a light sound, a burning flame rose out of the fire sickle rock. The flame was extremely hot. Zhuemo was slightly shocked. Right now, his jade metal head was in third maturation, but he could just barely tolerate such a high temperature. If it was a normal Xiuzhi, they probably would have to activate their Ling armor to hold up. Such a powerful fire. A copper puppet was unable to avoid it and started to melt. Zhuemo stared at the burning fire sickle rock. Suddenly, an unfamiliar voice passed into his mind. Cheep cheep cheep. Even though he could not understand, but Zhuemo could feel the closeness and joy it passed on. He couldn't help but grin. The vitality coming from the fire sickle rock inside the flame became even stronger. He could clearly feel something alive inside it. After burning for 2 whole hours, the fire sickle rock suddenly split from the middle. A red shadow shot out rapidly. The fire shadow suddenly stopped in front of Zhuemo. He finally managed to see this fire Yao. It was the size of a fist, shaped like a ball of fire as it continued to chirp. It happily flew nimbly around Zhuemo. You'll be called Lil the Fire. Zhuemo made up a name on the spot. Lil the Fire seemed to understand and was even happier, chirping continuously. Lil the Pagoda was curious and timidly came over. Lil Fire was not shy, and quickly started to play with Lil Pagoda. The pagoda and fire flew quickly in the air as they chased after each other. Zhuemo's mood was very good. The scene in front of him made him feel very warm inside. Even if Lil Fire didn't have any spells, he felt it was alright. After a while, a grey figure flashed into the cave like lightning. It was Silly Bird with Lil Black on top of her head. She elegantly reached out with her bird claws and gently landed on the ground. When Lil Pagoda saw Silly Bird, it was even more excited. It took the little brother it just met and ran in front of Silly Bird. Lil the Fire circled around Silly Bird in curiosity. At this moment, Silly Bird was like a big sister. She used her long bird beak to nudge Lil Fire. Lil the Fire was like a rubber ball as it flipped through the air. It became even more excited and chirped. Seeing the little ones interacting harmoniously, Zhuemo was even happier. The only thing that caused discontent was Silly Bird. From the moment this one landed, she didn't even look at him properly. This brat. Zhuemo gritted his teeth but couldn't do anything. He didn't know what had happened, but she was even faster than his flying sword. He couldn't do anything to her. What are you playing around for? Go work. Zhuemo glared at Lil Pagoda. Lil Pagoda, that was playing happily, instantly withered, dejectedly directing the puppets to start mining. Little brat, dare to fight against GE. Zhuemo left in satisfaction. When Zhuemo left, the 4 little ones gathered together again as they chatted. Lil Black quickly climbed down from Silly Bird's head, moving its short legs like a wisp of black smoke to quickly circle around the cave, its antennae waving. After a while, it stopped on a piece of rock in the cave. It waved its antennae at the other 3, and then flipped its short legs, running off the rock. Silly Bird made a small jump and spread her wings. With a fierce flap, a sharp howl suddenly sounded inside the cave. Like a flash of grey lightning, it struck the rock that Lil Black had pointed out. The hard rock was like a piece of tofu as Silly Bird pierced through it like a sharp arrow. A large hole appeared in the rock. After a while, a grey shadow flew out of it. Silly Bird stopped in the air, shook off the shards of rock, and resumed her elegant composure. Lil Fire chirped and turned into a thread of fire, burrowing into the deep cave that Silly Bird bored out. After a while, countless threads of fire crisscrossed in the cave like a red spiderweb. After a while, the fire wavered drunkenly as it flew out of the cave. Rumble rumble. Large pieces of rock continued to fall like it was raining. In a moment, the tunnel was filled with pieces of rock. Lil's pagoda happily turned in the air, and the copper puppets instantly leapt over. After a short while, the ore was piled up in mountains. The four little ones started to play again, the cheerful chirping of fire echoing in the tunnels. The third cadet hall. Lei Ping smacked his lips. Miss is serious this time. Nian Lu took out a mirror, and combed his bangs that had been blown into disorder by the wind. He said, "It's a pity there aren't any female show. Without their furious shouts, I'm really not used to it. Such a waste of the beautiful scene that is I." Lei Ping ignored him and said, with Miss personality, since he decided to act, he definitely wouldn't be hitting the cadet branches just to vent. "Who do you think that we are going to attack next?" There were many people that also had the same question as Lei Ping. Xia Shan was one of those. Ma Fan held a stalk of grass in his mouth as he lazily laid on the ground. "If it was me, I'd hit the reinforcements." "The reinforcements?" Xia Shan had a thoughtful expression. As the two most offensively powerful people of Vermilion Bird Camp, their relationship had gradually deepened. Ma Fan had many ideas. After being the core for a while, his perspective when looking at a problem was very different than normal Shouja. We've attacked so many of their cadet halls, the outer hall certainly wouldn't rest. They will definitely send people to attack us. Ma Fan had a thoughtful expression and said, "We don't have many people. If we end up surrounded by the enemy, our days will end. We need space, we need to continuously pull along the enemy so we have opportunities." Xia Shan's eyes lit up, clapping his hands as he praised, "Right. This way, we will slowly consume the enemy." Ma Fan smiled and said, "We can think of it, how can Miss not think of it? Don't worry, I'm not sure about other places, but there definitely is no one in Little Mountain Jia that can defeat Mississippi." "Haha," Xia Shan said with a smile, "that's true. How long do you have until Jindan?" Ma Fan suddenly asked. "I don't know, but I feel that I will break through soon." "As expected, combat is the best training," Xia Shan said with a smile. "After Jindan? Where are you going?" Ma Fan said with slight gravity. "You don't need to feel me out," Xia Shan smiled and said, "I'll definitely still follow boss. Actually, I'm slightly curious." "Curious about what?" Ma Fan asked. "I'm curious how far boss can really go." Xia Shan looked into the distance. "Just because of this? I don't believe it." Ma Fan shook his head. "Of course that isn't all of it. I've gradually come to understand just how much I'm worth. Boss is a pretty good boss, and I feel that boss has a good future." Xia Shan listed with his fingers, talented, hardworking, humble. Most importantly, young. Way too young. It's the first time I've met such a powerful person. Boss origins are probably not as simple as we think. Adding on Miss, and the band of brothers we have now, it's nothing to just conquer a territory and live a good life. He laughed self-mockingly. "I've been the leader before, it isn't easy being the leader. I feel that it is pretty good right now, I get all my benefits, I don't have to worry about any problems, and can do anything that is needed. My progress in this past half year is more than the progress of the last 3 years combined." Ma Fan didn't speak, but his expression lessened. "Don't worry, I guarantee that none of the brothers now will leave," Xia Shan's voice was filled with confidence. Ma Fan chewed the grass stalk and made a sound of acknowledgement. Suddenly, a sharp bugle call sounded. "Let's go, it's time to work." He Xiang was extremely busy. He hadn't had good sleep in these days. He hadn't expected the mysterious troop that suddenly appeared behind him to be this slippery. He had sent a troop to kill them, but after 2 days, he received the unexpected news that a cadet hall was destroyed. With anger, he sent out another troop. The other's movement was hard to predict. After a few days, another piece of news came through. A cadet hall located extremely far away had been massacred. After that, every 1 to 2 days, he would receive the bad news that a certain cadet hall had been destroyed. The news seemed to spread through Little Mountain Jie like it had wings. Their progress instantly became much harder. The factions that had thought of submitting to the outer hall started to hesitate. The outer hall could not be stopped, but clearly, that mysterious troop also could not be stopped. The news that the cadet halls were attacked spread through all the cadet halls. Each hall had prepared, but they could not stop this mysterious force. From this, it was possible to see the power of this force. But the factions couldn't bear to surrender the territory that they had won through hard work. If they lost these territories, and they were swallowed by the outer hall, they wouldn't have any leverage to negotiate. These factions instantly found it hard to advance or retreat. As the advance of the outer hall met resistance, the pressure on He Xiang and the others' bodies increased heavily. We need to find their base. In the time of 10 short days, He Xiang seemed like a completely different person. His entire face was shockingly thin. It definitely isn't the matter of a few days to train such a strong force. If we can find their base, then they will definitely be forced to go back. At that time, we can surround them. But we've searched for so long, and there hasn't been any news, an elder said. Just at this time, an elder suddenly stumbled in. I found them. I found them. All the elders abruptly stood up. Where? What place? All of you, shut up. He Xiang shouted sharply. Instantly, everyone obediently closed their mouths. In this short period of time, He Xiang had successfully built up his authority. It truly wasn't luck that the old forefather had picked him. The elder that charged in was flushed and extremely excited. Let me first show you something. He Xiang suppressed the irritation inside. A black meditation mat was placed in front of everyone. The elders hurriedly came over and examined it. They all recognized good things, and instantly saw the trick. All of them inhaled sharply. They weren't dumb. This little meditation mat was a decisive influence on the situation of Little Mountain Jie. This is a talisman produced by a place called Golden Crow City. I probably don't need to introduce the abilities. Golden Crow City is at the Sky Star Peak. After a group occupied it, they built a city. Everyone couldn't help but inhale sharply again. Built a city. I'm not sure who the true master is, but elder he is definitely very familiar with their chief business manager. He Xiang's expression changed. Who is it? Bao Yi. The elders' faces instantly became strange. He Xiang's face instantly became heavy. According to the Xiuzhe, they once saw a troop leave Golden Crow City at night. Less than 1,000 people, the elder said, so that's why I suspect it is them. Now, all the Xiuzhe in the Jie are moving there. If we don't defeat it soon, if this meditation mat continues to sell, our future days won't be easy. Everyone's expression instantly became heavy. He Xiang stood up, his expression vicious. Attack Golden Crow City. Oh. Chapter 208-4, Great Formation. In an enormous and deep pit, Zhua Mo continuously dug down. The hole above his head seemed to be palm-sized. The depth of this place was 50 zhang below ground level. The pit was about 1 zhang in radius. The female Xiu stood nearby. Looking up, the height of 50 zhang was enough to make one feel suffocated. Suddenly, Zhua Mo stopped his movements, a surprised and joyful expression on his face. Let's go up, he said to the female Xiu. Even though the female Xiu couldn't hear, but he still said it. Then he started to fly up, the female Xiu followed closely behind him. As he flew up to the entrance of the hole, Zhuemo stopped and took a deep breath. With all his power, he punched out a sky glass wave. A glass-like fist brutally entered the pit, and smashed heavily on the bottom. Boom! Bright red lava sprouted out, continuously sprouting up like an ancient wild beast released from its cage. From far away, Zhuemo was still able to feel a burning presence rush against his face. The deep red lava would occasionally spit out flames. Facing the power of nature, Zhuemo's expression couldn't help but change. If he accidentally got caught by the earth fire, unless he had Jindan cultivation, his bones would not survive. Other than shock, joy also made its way onto his face. He pulled the female Xiao as he kept on flying up. The lava finally reached the surface. This place was the core of the big formations Zhuemo had set up. The deep red viscous lava slowly flowed. As it flowed into the tunnels, the formations on the walls of the tunnel started to light up. Zhuemo finally could not stop himself from showing a smile. He had succeeded. Finally succeeded. Right above his head, Golden Crow City suddenly lit up in the night. Countless golden lights like golden fish leaping against the current flew into the sky above Golden Crow City. These small golden energies spread and gathered above Golden Crow City. All the people in Golden Crow City were alarmed by such a loud change. They all walked out of the buildings, raising their faces to look at the golden energies covering the sky. The Xiuzhe that were skilled in formations all changed expressions. They could occasionally see the shadow of formations in those golden energies that swam like fish. Was this some powerful formation? This was so unfathomable. They didn't know what kind of formation could create such a world-shaking apparition. The large factions that had camped outside the camp were also disturbed. What is that? Is it some treasure coming out of the ground? In the dark of the night, Golden Crow City's lights grew dramatically. It was covered in a blinding golden cage of light like a sun against the black sky. Such vast craftsmanship. On a mountain peak, a bearded middle-aged person sighed with shock. Beside him was a stocky large male. How so? The large male asked. This city most likely is hiding a very powerful formation. This presence clearly is the scene that occurs when a large formation has just formed. When we entered the city yesterday, I had found that the materials used in the city are extremely special. Darren definitely cannot guess it, the middle-aged person said with a smile. Oh, what kind of high-level material did it use? The large male was slightly curious. It is just the opposite of what Darren is thinking. The bricks used in the city are just normal bluestone. How is it possible? The large male paused and then shook his head. If blue stone can create such an impenetrable city, Little Mountain Jia should be covered in cities. Haha, it is bluestone, but this blue stone has been forged in Golden Crow fire. The middle-aged person grinned. So that's why. The large male finally understood. Admiration floated onto the face of the middle-aged person. This person is very clever. Even though the city is small, the method he really used is forging methods. Forging methods? Did he think of Golden Crow City like a talisman? The large male was stunned again. Exactly. All of Golden Crow City is covered in formations. All of the buildings are connected into one entity by formations. It forms a situation where all of them prosper or fall together. During the day, the sunlight will form a pillar of light and enter the city. Has Darren noticed it? Is there something about that too? The sunlight contains slight amounts of Golden Crow fire which is continuously absorbed by Golden Crow City. Over time, this city would become even purer. Isn't this a forging method? The eyes of the middle-aged person flashed as he sighed in praise. The daylight is good, but it requires time. This city master clearly cannot wait that long. If I am not wrong, he should be using earth fire to temper this city. This is why this subordinate calls it great craftsmanship. Using earth fire to temper this city? The expression on the large male's face was slightly stunned. After a beat, he shook his head and said, I hadn't thought that such powerful people were hiding in Little Mountain Jia. Someone this powerful. If I just let them slip by, I am not satisfied. What does teacher think, can we hire them? The middle-aged man shook his head. It is good that Darren is desirous of those with virtues. However, I see that this person already has his own power. He actually has battle generals. His origins are probably not simple. Even more, Darren's command posts have been filled. If we get him, where shall we put him? Hearing this, the large male paused for a while before sighing. Darren doesn't have to be sorrowful, the middle-aged person comforted. Our sect's power is vast, and full of resources. We only need Darren to first establish himself in the sect. It is not difficult for Darren to find talented people. This time, the sect leader's intentions of nurturing Darren is evident through sending Darren to investigate the affairs of Little Mountain Jia. Darren only has to complete his duty. There is no need to feel frustration over one person. Teacher is right. The large man's expression turned normal. Then anger was evident on his face. Humph, Clear Sky old man is too daring, he dares to ruin a GSO, he doesn't want to live. What he had seen on the way here was peerlessly cruel. Now that the news has spread, his days won't be easy. The middle-aged man's eyes flashed with a cold light. It is retribution that his disciple was killed. This one speculates other factions will soon enter. The large male suddenly said. Do you think that it might be the people inside that killed Huang Zhuoguang? He pointed at Golden Crow City. The middle-aged person paused, and then his mind moved. It is possible. However, this doesn't have much to do with us. He thought, and said as he shook his head, we have our business to attend to. The appearance of stars in daytime is a rare opportunity for Darren. Darren's luck is not bad. They had been sent to investigate the matter of the Yao army appearing in Little Mountain Jia, and to find the Chaos Rift. They hadn't expected to encounter the apparition of stars in daytime in the middle. But we do not have any results even now, the large male said helplessly. We can proceed slowly, rushing does not help. The middle-aged person also had no solution. Little Mountain Jia had become a mess. The unprecedented moves that the outer hall has made and the sudden rise of Golden Crow City had caused the two to become the most popular topic of Little Mountain Jia. All kinds of information were continuously passed out. Only 1/3 of the outer hall's cadet halls still remained. Not 2 days after that, they heard that mysterious troop had successively defeated 3 troops of reinforcements the outer hall had sent out. The Xiuzhe that had been defeated and fled all described the power of this troop. The fear still lingering on their faces became the most convincing evidence. The news quickly spread, and the outer hall, in complete reversal of its usual attitude, gathered its power and advanced continuously towards Golden Crow City. Those that had the slightest smarts instantly realized the connection between the mysterious troop and Golden Crow City. The factions positioned between the two forces quickly relocated behind Golden Crow City's location. Everyone was waiting to see the clash between the two major factions. The clash this time would be the clash between the two strongest factions of Little Mountain Jia. Nothing more had to be said about the outer hall. Even though they had lost 3,000 people, but they still had an enormous troop of more than 7,000 people. This enormous troop was like a juggernaut. All factions that dared to resist in its path were crushed under them completely with the weight of Mount Tai. Golden Crow City leapt into view. In tens of days, it had jumped to become an existence just below the outer hall. Golden Crow Fire, Black Processing Meditation Mat, the 36 formation battle watchtowers, and the mysterious troop had caused Golden Crow City to become the center of Little Mountain Jia. Golden Crow City seemed to not feel the pressuring steps of the outer hall. It still was furiously selling black processing meditation mats. This also caused it to become an essential stop for the Xiuzhe that were retreating. Everyone did everything within their abilities to buy black processing meditation mats. Black processing meditation mats might be expensive, but compared to Ling grains, it had too many benefits. In the midst of it all, many factions suggested they could help defend the city, but Bao Yi adeptly refused them. This caused everyone to be even more curious. After they bought the black processing meditation mats, they didn't leave, but set up bases behind Golden Crow City. Looking from far away, it was not possible to see the end of the densely packed Xiuzhe behind Golden Crow City. Half of all the Xiuzhe of Little Mountain Jie had gathered here. They wanted to personally see this rare clash between titans. The result of this clash would directly relate to their future life. Privately, about 8/10 of the Xiuzhe favored the outer hall. The terrifying power of 7,000 Xiuzhe combined made everyone fearful. Even if that mysterious troop belonged to Golden Crow City, but their numbers were too few. They could be used to harass, but they were not able to be significantly effective, especially with Clear Sky Old Forefather, a Jindan, standing guard. They were just curious how long Golden Crow City could withstand the outer hall's attack. But contrary to everyone's expectations, the outer hall started to slow down its advance. While the speed of the army's advancement slowed, the pressure only made them feel more suffocated. Those that had some knowledge understood the outer hall was resting up and preparing for the final battle. Golden Crow City still performed business as usual. Many of the Xiuzhe behind the city were sighing. If Golden Crow City really landed in the hands of the outer hall, it really was good for them. No one could determine how much wealth Golden Crow City really had, but the items definitely were piled up in mountains. Black processing meditation mats were not cheap. Golden Crow City was the wealthiest place in the present Little Mountain Jie. After opening the flow of earth fire, Zhua Mo became idle. Half of his heart had landed when the formation was finished. A big battle was coming up, but he was not panicked. Instead he acted calm and casual. When each person saw boss was so composed, the nervous atmosphere instantly relaxed to the highest degree. Everyone's enthusiasm quickly grew. As long as boss was here, they didn't have to worry about anything. Zhuemo flew to the formation battle watchtower. The 36 formation battle watchtowers had become the busiest places. The eastern and western camps were nervously training before the battle. They were all clear they were the main force in the battle to defend the city this time. Each person was rubbing their hands and furiously trained. If they performed well, they may even be promoted to Vermilion Bird Camp. That was the place that everyone in the eastern and western camps yearned to go into. This battle was their best chance. Zhuemo exchanged a greeting with the commanders of the eastern and western camps, and flew to the highest level. He had come this time to look at the lightning sonic walnuts that had been nurtured in the formation battle watchtowers. Chapter 285, Comprehensions Gained from Forging Sonic Lightning Walnuts, 4th Grade, Hard, Righteous, and Breaks Evil. Before this, Zhuemo didn't have many 4th grade materials on his hands, and did not understand much about 4th grade materials. The amount of jade scrolls and old records that talked about 4th grade materials were pitifully few in places like Sky Moon Jie and Little Mountain Jie. 4th grade materials were so valuable that normal people rarely were able to even see them. Only sects with some power could use them for practice and gain experience. Wukong Sword Sect clearly didn't number among these sections. Zhuemo had memorized many jade scrolls, but there were just a few phrases that related to 4th grade materials, and most of them were vague. As the amount of 4th grade materials on his hands increased, he gradually learned some things. The biggest difference between 4th and 3rd grade materials were in their formations. The natural formations on 4th grade materials were of higher level, more complete and complex, than that of 3rd grade materials. Zhuemo didn't know if the predecessors of Xiuzhe had learned formations from materials, and only sighed at the wonders of creation. The forging skill level of a Xiuzhe could be said to be a measure of the degree the Xiuzhe could activate the natural formations of the material. The formation techniques of fourth-grade talismans had a close connection with the natural formations of materials used. After being nurtured by hard lightning in this period of time, the sonic lightning walnuts looked like rotten silver, its surface carved with pits and grooves. It was heavy in his hand, even with its volume having shrunk. However, it was covered in the light of dense blue lightning, so to hold it Suemo had to use his ling power to cover his palm. When he inspected it, he instantly felt the lightning element inside. Suemo gaped. This sonic lightning walnut was something good, but it was very dangerous. If he wasn't careful when forging it could explode and easily harm him. He recalled Pu Yao had suggested he use the method for fire beads to forge the sonic lightning walnuts. However, he had been so busy previously he hadn't thought about it. After some thought, he seemed to understand. Pu Yao would never do anything meaningless, but what he suggested didn't always work. There were many methods listed in the fire bead chapter, to forge fire beads. Suemo was always astonished by the variety of fire beads. Due to being unable to find a fiend ground, he couldn't make fire beads, so he had thrown the jade scroll to the side. Now that his knowledge was far better than before, he had a completely new experience when he reread the jade scroll. Gradually, a sliver of understanding formed. The most important part of the fire bead creation methods was a place he hadn't noticed before: it must be forged with fire. Beads had an attribute of so the forging fire had to be as well. The stalagmite fires Wamo had before was Technically, when the attributes were the same, the two should feed off each other and gradually merge into one entity. The most wondrous part of the fire bead chapter was that it could let the two stay in a kind of semi-merged state, the most explosive state. Zhuemo was intoxicated with such a wondrous transformation. He didn't know how the elder who had created the fire bead had thought of such a wondrous spell. If he was to use the fire bead method to forge sonic lightning walnuts, then he needed to use purely yang fire. It was perfect for Zhuemo. The golden crow fire on his hands was one of the best of pure yang fires. However, he needed a help. Sonic lightning walnuts were 4th grade, and were much higher grade than the beads he had created in the past. Zhuemo's mind suddenly moved. He thought of Lil, Fire, and Lil, Pagoda. Lil, Fire was a fire Yao, and Lil, Pagoda had all 5 elements in one body, and could control fire. He was connected mentally to Lil, Paogda. When his mind moved, Lil, Pagoda knew. In a short while, Lil, Pagoda led Lil, Fire to fly to the formation battle watchtowers. Silly Bird also followed with Lil, Black. When Lil, Fire flew into the formation battle watchtower, it floated around in the air like a fire-red ball, playing happily by itself. Lil, Pagoda was at the side silently listening to Zhuemo talk. Zhuemo took out more than 10 mini boxes from his ring. These were the golden crow fires that he had especially held on to. The rest had all been sold. Golden crow fire was not difficult for him to gather, but he didn't have the time right now. Lil, Fire, who had been flipping in the air, suddenly froze. When it saw the mini boxes, it instantly gave happy chirping sounds. It turned into a fire wisp and leapt at the mini boxes. There was a smell of flame that came from inside it and was a fatal attraction for Lil, Fire. Zhuemo didn't stop it, and saw it swallow all the mini boxes in one gulp. He instantly gaped, his hand frozen in the air. After a while, he recovered. The first thought in his mind was, this was another glutton. Lil, Pagoda wasn't angry, and skipped around Lil, Fire. The round body of Lil, Fire instantly became even rounder like a red bubble. Suddenly, a fingernail-sized gold star appeared on its forehead. However, upon closer inspection, Zhuemo couldn't tell if it was Lil, Fire's forehead. This guy was way too round. He stared at Lil, Fire for a while. Nothing seemed to happen to Lil, Fire. Lil, Fire continued to cheerfully chirp and play with Lil, Pagoda in the air. Lil Pagoda would use the tip of the pagoda to poke Lil Fire, and Lil Fire would nudge Lil Pagoda with its round body. The two little ones clearly were having fun, causing Lil Black's antennae to wave in the air as it watched from the side, wanting to join in. Suemo stared tightly at Lil Fire. There still wasn't a change. After playing for a while, Lil Fire noticed Suemo staring at it, and gave a cheerful chirp. It flew into Suemo's embrace, and snuggled around. Suemo reached to grab this guy. The round body was really like a bubble, warm and soft. However, Suemo clearly was not moved by its fawning. Reaching to grab Lil Fire, he dangled it in front of his eyes, and squeezed Lil Fire into all kinds of shapes, gritting through his teeth. "Little brat, you swallowed that much golden crow fire, but there's no change. Do you know how many jingsher that was? You ate so much jingsher with one gulp." Lil Pagoda's body shook and it silently started to float away. Lil Black, that had been wanting to join in the fun, suddenly stopped moving its antennae. The calmest one was Silly Bird. Suemo's rage could not be stopped. He had originally planned on giving Lil Pagoda and Lil Fire one each, and hadn't expected this guy to clean him out with one gulp, and not even leaving the boxes behind. "Can you breathe fire?" Suemo said, full of killing intent. "No. You don't know how to breathe fire. You dare to not know. Do you know how much jingsher?" Lil Fire hurriedly spat out a little wisp of flame on his hands. "Hm. You do know how to breathe fire." Suemo's face instantly became curious, and he put Lil Fire in front of him. He inspected it carefully, speaking to himself. "You don't have any orifices, where did you breathe it out?" Lil Fire's fleshy body instantly froze. Lil Pagoda instantly raised its eaves to cover its face. The entire pagoda was bright red like a cooked shrimp. After studying for a while, Suemo still didn't have any results. He decided to not waste any more time. He really was grasping at straws when he had hoped this crowd of gluttons could be of help. He should never have any illusions about these gluttons. Suemo's heart was bleeding. So much jingsher was gone. The four quickly left for the mine as though they were being pardoned. Suemo decided to do it by himself. However, he didn't dare to experiment on the formation battle watchtower. If he wasn't careful, the entire tower would be bombed into dust. He picked a third-grade lucky cloud from the stores, sat on it and slowly floated into the sky. The lucky cloud was extremely soft like cotton. Basically no one except hedonists used it. Compared to ling beasts and flying swords, its flying speed was too slow. However, there were some high-grade lucky clouds that were extremely fast, like the famous flying nimbus. Among 5th-grade steeds, its speed was in the top 10. The lucky cloud might be slow, but there was a benefit. It did not need to be controlled to stay afloat. This ball of lucky cloud was the size of his palm. When it was thrown out, it instantly grew to about 10 zhang in radius. It could hold many people, so the female Xiao stood at a distance not far from him. Suemo ignored the dense populace of Xiozha that were camping on the mountains. With the formation battle watchtowers and a female Xiao present, he didn't have to worry about people interrupting his forging. He took out the sonic lightning walnut, spat out the golden crow fire, and started to forge. The most important part of the Yin fire bead forging was to freeze the state of the Yin bead and the Yin fire in the instant before they merged. In front of Suemo, a thread of golden crow fire enveloped the sonic lightning walnut. After 2 whole hours, the golden crow fire finally removed the layer of hard lightning on the exterior of the walnut and revealed the true seed of the sonic lightning walnut. After another hour, the creased surface of the silver walnut started to show signs of melting. The silver liquid flowed slowly along the patterns of the walnut. The thick lightning element made Suemo's heart beat rapidly as though he was on thin ice. 4th-grade materials were as extraordinary as expected. Suemo's mind was deeply immersed in this forging process, but it was also a rare chance for him to learn. Both the Golden Crow Fire and the Sonic Lightning Walnut were rare fourth-grade materials. When the two merged, they gave rise to many changes, most of which he had never seen before. The natural formations on the Sonic Lightning Walnut were continuously broken in the forging process and reformed like pieces of wooden blocks forming new pictures. Some were formations, some were nonsense patterns. Forging needed the Shouja to choose and experience the changes in the formations. Different Shouja would gain experience through different changes, to comprehend different things, but the underlying nature was the same. Without this kind of experience, no matter how deep their cultivation was, how abundant the Ling power inside their body was, one still could not break through to other stages and would still be small and weak. Mo was immersed in this mystical world. The feeling of walking on thin ice slowly disappeared, and he forgot himself. The flickering of the Golden Crow Fire in front of him suddenly slowed as though a wild stallion had been tamed. The Sonic Lightning Walnut also changed rapidly. The walnut patterns that had covered the surface disappeared. It was entirely smooth like a perfect silver ball. Threads of Golden Crow Fire burrowed into the silver ball and beautiful golden patterns started to float into the surface of the silver ball. The number of gold patterns increased like a golden vine furiously growing along the surface of the Sonic Lightning Walnut. Mo suddenly opened his eyes, the Sonic Lightning Walnut falling into his palm. The golden patterns on it were complex like flowers that covered the surface of the silver ball. It seemed like a normal silver ball without any of its presence exposed. Chapter 286, Arrival. Rong Wei watched the troop disappear into the horizon. Her heart was filled with shock that she could not voice. After personally watching the entire battle, this troop of 600 or 700 people had left a deep impression on her. The knife-sharp charges had caused her to momentarily think of turning and fleeing. There was no challenge in the entire battle. It ended in an extremely short amount of time. This troop was like a keen blade that dismembered the enemy in moments. Yes, other than dismembering, she could not think of any other descriptor that could express the scene she saw. Their opponent had been a troop of 1,000 people. The compound guards next to Rong Wei stared in disbelief with gaping mouths at the empty sky. The scene just now had given them too much of a blow. The unstoppable and keen charges pierced their hearts like a bolt of lightning. The 1,000-man troop had seemed to be made out of papier-mâché. With one clash, they had shattered into pieces. Rong Wei had never thought that when the howls and sharp presences of sword energies gathered together, that it could be so spectacular, so soul-stealing. Even they, the spectators, felt their scalps prickle, their limbs cold. What must it like to be the troop that was facing such a terrifying scene directly? No one laughed at the troop that was defeated. How could there be such a strong troop in Little Mountain Jia? Even in Sky Water Jia, there were only 1 or 2 troops that were said to be at such a level. "Head, there are people following behind us," Xia Shan said to Gongsun Cha in a low voice. Many of the people in the troop had noticed a troop of people following behind them. However, they were not worried, just slightly curious. After fighting for so long, people who saw them fight all fled with the wind. It was the first time they saw someone who followed them like this. Gongsun Cha looked back. "Oh, go ask." Xia Shan admonished himself for being chatty. Wasn't that finding more work to do for himself? However, since Lil Mist commanded it, he could only fly towards that troop. Truthfully, Rong Wei's heart was also very insecure. If the other unreasonably charged over to kill without any cause, they could only flee. However, she noticed that the other side didn't seem to be obsessed with killing, and hadn't pursued their enemies who had fled. She was really too curious about this troop. She was very learned, and naturally could see the bones of an army in this troop. She knew very well that building an army was not a simple battle. The members had to be picked with thought, there had to be skilled members, and there were enormous expenses. There were many sects in Sky Water Jia, but only 2 had an army. She had followed the Marquis for many years, and knew the Marquis had had the notion for a long time. However, he struggled with the problem of manpower. The only people that had the abilities to build an army were battle generals, but only large sects had the abilities to groom battle generals. The compound guards under her command looked like the elite, but if they were compared, the difference was instantly visible. Rong Wei's eyes were not ordinary. She could see the average power of the troops Xiuzhe wasn't as high as the compound guards under her command. But if the equal numbers of people were fighting, the ones to die first would be the compound guards. She actually wanted to see if she could hire this battle general, or hire this entire troop. But she knew that it was a fantasy. It clearly had been some time since this troop had formed. A sect that didn't have some power wouldn't be able to support them, but since they had been raised, then the sect supporting them definitely had power. The possibility of hiring them was minuscule. One reason that she had given the order to follow was curiosity. The other reason was that she was clear that such a strong troop definitely was a significant power in Little Mountain Jie. Even if she could not recruit them, it wasn't a bad choice to partner up with them. Hadn't she been puzzled regarding the question of how they were to investigate stars in daytime? If she partnered up with such a strong faction, it would be much easier to accomplish. But the compound guards did not know Rong Wei's thoughts. Each of them were shaking in their boots, preparing to take Rong Wei and flee at any second. Suddenly, someone from the troop up ahead flew towards them. The compound guards instantly became nervous. Rong Wei's heart settled down. What she was most worried about was the other would kill without asking any questions. Since the other had sent someone over, then it meant she had the room to speak. "Who are you? Why are you following us?" Xia Shan asked. Rong Wei bowed and said, "We are disciples from Sky Water Jie's house of Marquis Wu, and have come with an order to investigate the stars in daytime in Little Mountain Jie. Is it possible to travel with your division? It is for safety. This is a small token of our appreciation, please take it." She took out some pieces of 4th grade jingshi. Xia Shan looked at the jingshi on her hands but did not take them. He nodded and said, "I'll report the request for you." Finishing, he turned and went back to the troop. "To travel with us?" Gongsun Cha was slightly surprised. "Or does she want to pursue one of us?" Lei Ping snickered. At the side, Nian Lu shook his bangs, and followed up, "Who else other than me?" Everyone ignored them. Even Zhong Ru couldn't bear to look at them. How had he been on the same team as these two clowns before? So embarrassing. "That's what she said, and they are from Sky Water Jie's house of Marquis Wu," Xia Shan continued. "Which of you have heard of them?" asked Gongsun Cha. "We are all country people, who's been to Sky Water Jie," Ma Fan mocked. "What do you want to do?" Xia Shan gazed at Gongsun Cha. "We don't have the time to tangle with them." Gongsun Cha shook his head. "Such a pity, that is a great beauty." Xia Shan's tone was slightly teasing. Gongsun Cha glanced at him and Xia Shan instantly shut up. "Do not provoke Lil to miss, otherwise, their outcome would be very tragic." A paper crane suddenly flew out of the sky and landed in Gongsun Cha's hand. Opening the paper crane and taking a quick look, Gongsun Cha's expression changed slightly. The paper crane was passed quickly onto the hands of other people. Everyone's faces became grave. No one joked, no one wasted words. The mood instantly became tense. The Vermilion Bird Camp instantly organized their ranks and raced with their fastest speed to Sky Star Peak. Rong Wei looked with astonishment at the troop that disappeared at the horizon. What was this? The compound guards all released a breath. They had been scared half to death. A compound guard carefully said to Rong Wei, "Miss, they've gone away." Rong Wei woke from her trance, and responded, "Follow them." The compound guards that had just released a breath instantly grimaced. Rong Wei ignored them and flew out first. The other people could only follow helplessly. Zhuemo opened his hand, and a lightning bullet twirled in his hand. This was the young fiendish hard lightning that he was so familiar. Young fiendish hard lightning required using the consciousness to manipulate the sparse lightning power in the air to form hard lightning. Due to the unique method, the hard lightning created was both extremely young and hard. Zhuemo was extremely familiar with this move now. With one thought, the hard lightning would form. He continued to gather hard lightning, and then beat it to smithereens. He was experimenting. The process of forging the sonic lightning walnuts was very successful. He had comprehended some methods for hard lightning, and hoped to merge these understandings into the spells that he knew. Young fiendish hard lightning was his primary attack move. It was faster than Sky Wave Fist, and was extremely powerful. The only flaw was that there was a lack of variation. When Zhuemo had comprehended those hard lightning formations, the first thing he thought of was, young fiendish hard lightning. Continuously adding comprehensions to spells was something every shouja had to do. This was also why disciples of the same sect would practice the same spells, but the results were different. Each person had different comprehensions, and the road they walked was naturally different. The lightning bullet continued to change in his palm. Suddenly, a net with a small mesh size covered all of Zhuemo's palm, and then it suddenly turned into a lightning arrow. The lightning arrow suddenly dissipated and turned to countless tiny lightning snakes. The snakes suddenly gathered and turned to a lightning bird. Gradually, Zhuemo felt he had gained greater control. The hard lightning on his hand seemed like a part of his body and could change according to his thoughts. Zhuemo quickly judged the quality of each change. Hard lightning heavily leaned towards offense and seemed to have almost no defensive power when it turned to a lightning shield. When it became a lightning arrow or spear, it was unstoppable. The other attribute of hard lightning was that it was extremely quick. It probably was one of the fastest of all the spells. Hard lightning was hard and ferocious, and extremely hard to compress. Zhuemo had tried all he could, but could not condense the lightning power even more. It was possible to see the value of sonic lightning walnuts from this. The amount of lightning power contained in sonic lightning walnuts was so much one couldn't imagine it. After forging, the power of the sonic lightning walnuts had increased. Zhuemo was full of anticipation about its power, but he didn't test it as he couldn't bear the loss. Zhuemo suddenly opened his eyes. Looking into the distance, a cold smile came onto his face. He controlled the lucky cloud to slowly land in Golden Crow City. Once he landed, he stored away the lucky cloud. Zhuemo's calm and unflustered state resolved some of the nervousness of the shouja in the two camps. Everyone, pay attention. They have come, Zhuemo shouted out. Everyone's hearts jumped. However, they had already prepared for battle, and lined up neatly. The lights of the formation battle watchtowers started to light up one after the other. The city gates slowly closed. All of the noise inside the city instantly disappeared. The shouja behind Golden Crow City also noticed it and started to shift. The outer hall has come. The outer hall has come. It's going to begin. Everyone, careful. If you see the situation isn't right, start running. Ha! I've never seen something as big as this is really broadening my vision. The noise of the surroundings passed around. The middle-aged person, the large male, and their group also flew into the sky. Infected by the others around him, burning desire for battle lit up suddenly in the eyes of the large male, and a slight blush came onto the face of the middle-aged man. Who had ever seen such a large-scale battle before? You have to watch closely. This is a rare chance. Just a little bit will be enough to greatly benefit you, the middle-aged man lectured the guards around him. The large male knew the middle-aged man was actually reminding him. However, he was staring fixedly at the distant horizon. A large dense patch of black dots appeared on the horizon like a black cloud, and slowly flew over. The noisy shouja all simultaneously inhaled sharply, the sky completely silent. As the outer hall neared, everyone's faces couldn't help but pale. 7,000 Shouja gathered in the sky like a flood that could not be stopped as it rolled forward. It was not very fast, but the pressure that came with it made the people feel suffocated. It seemed to be using this method to show its power to destroy everything. Chapter 287, Cloud Formation Silk. As the army came closer, the Shouja on the formation battle watchtowers shifted, but quickly calmed down. The sun disappeared into the thick clouds, the sky darkened, and the air filled with the scent of death. Mo shook his head. In the end, the eastern and western camps were too inexperienced. Gongsun Shidi hadn't put his focus on these two camps. The two camps lacked greatly compared to Vermilion Bird Camp. He raised his hand and threw out the Buddha sound hoop. As the golden Buddha sound hoop flew, it rose into the sky above Golden Crow City and turned into a shining sun with numerous golden threads that dangling down tied onto the 36 formation battle watchtowers. Upon the golden thread were countless golden rings. The Buddha sound hoop had been tempered by Golden Crow fire and hard lightning. At this time, its attributes matched with Golden Crow City and the formation battle watchtower. As it rose, the scene was far more extraordinary than when he used it at Desolate Wood Reef. Mo had put much effort into the placement of the 36 formation battle watchtowers. Other than being able to form Sky Ring Moon Chime formation, with the Buddha sound hoop, they could form a formation on their own. Mo was full of confidence for this battle. This confidence was not in anything else but Golden Crow City. No one knew just how much effort and thought he had put into this city that he had built with his own hands. The dignified and stern Buddha sound formation seemed to be chanting into one's ear, yet almost imperceptible at moments. The terror in the hearts of the Shouja in the city lessened. What is this formation? Shock flashed across the eyes of the large male that was watching from far away. This formation's presence was not normal. The middle-aged person narrowed his eyes. From what this subordinate sees, this formation should originate from Sky Ring Moon Chime formation, but its attributes are exactly the opposite. Domineering, hard and fierce, primarily for killing. This person's formations interlock together and are very strong. How so? The large male asked for guidance. The middle-aged person explained, Darren, please look. That golden hoop should be a Buddha sound hoop. Buddha sound hoop. The large male had not heard of it before. Is it powerful? It's just a normal third-grade sound-type talisman, but this Buddha sound hoop clearly has been specially tempered. If this subordinate has not guessed wrong, it should have been processed in fire and lightning. This hoop has risen to 4th grade already. Oh, 4th grade. The large male didn't seem to care. 4th grade talismans were rare, but were not much to him. This city master's thoughts are extremely clever. The power of the Sky Ring Moon Chime formation might be large, but setting up the formation is complex. This person used the formation battle watchtowers as the base. This way, he only needs this Buddha sound hoop to set up the formation at any time. Since this hoop has been processed by fire and lightning, it is hard and fierce. This city can also continuously provide fire and lightning. With this formation and the formation battle watchtowers, Golden Crow City has become one body, and the power has been multiplied many times. The middle-aged person could not disguise the admiration. At this time, the large male finally understood, anticipation growing on his face. Listening to the Buddha sounds, Mo looked at the army that had already entered 20 li of Golden Crow City with a cold smile at the corner of his mouth. Other than Jin Dan, no one had ever heard of Ningmai Shouja that could attack outside of 20 li. The sword energies of Ningmai Sword Xiu was not effective outside of 3 li. In other words, if the other wanted to attack Golden Crow City, it must come within 3 li of the city. But the attacking range of formation battle watchtowers was 10 li. The hard lightning formation battle watchtowers that Mo constructed had an astounding attack range of 15 li. Why were formation battle watchtowers still essential constructs for a city even though they were so expensive and hard to build? Because of its great power. When Wuxia Mo first constructed Golden Crow City, all of his setup was for battle. He had used almost any kind of attacking move he could think of on Golden Crow City. When He Xiang and the rest of the Outer Hall elders saw Golden Crow City from a distance, their faces were filled with amazement. I hadn't really expected someone built a city. Really hadn't expected it. Greed was in every elder's eyes. When a person first saw such an exquisite and beautiful Golden Crow City, their first idea was to take it for themselves. Only us Outer Hall has the qualifications to live in such a good place. He Xiang said firmly. He couldn't wait for 1 second. If they could take down this city, and make it the headquarters for the Outer Hall, how grand would it be? Even old forefather wouldn't be able to calmly face such a city. He also heard there were piles of valuable materials and talismans inside. This was a treasure city. The other elders all gave their agreement. Each person's eyes were heated. The struggles they had previously encountered were thrown to the back of their minds. At this moment, there was only this city in their eyes, a city of the sun. Who is going first? He Xiang turned and asked. The elders all closed their mouths. They were not stupid. The presence of Golden Crow City was heavy. The light coming from the large formation made all of their hearts shake slightly. In their view, it was time to harvest. If they could take down Golden Crow City, they would definitely be on the achievements list. However, if they died at this last step, it wasn't worth it. The Buddha sounds floated from across the distance. The golden sun above Golden Crow City also reminded them to be careful. He Xiang knew these people very well. He smiled coldly inside, and said, the first person to get into the city is the first to pick the spoils, they can pick 3 pieces. The eyes of the elders instantly turned red. With great rewards, there would always be brave ones. With Golden Crow City's wealthy, it was possible to imagine the richness of the spoils. The first to pick, and to pick 3 items, it would at least be 3 4th-grade talismans. No one could remain unmoved by such a rich reward. Who first? He Xiang asked again. Me first. Me first. The elders instantly leap, their enthusiasm for battle growing. Even second elder who was usually at odds with chief elder couldn't resist speaking. Then we shall first trouble second elder. He Xiang said without showing his emotions. Seeing second elder take his troops and joyfully prepare to attack, imperceptible smugness flashed across He Xiang's eyes. He was very devious. When he saw Golden Crow City, he knew this was a tough nut to crack. He was happy to see second elder willing to go die. He Xiang was filled with confidence at taking down Golden Crow City. With this many people, he could just drown the other side. By that time, he was certain he would have the spare energy to plan some other affairs. Among the elders, second elder's rank in power was below He Xiang. He naturally understood what He Xiang thought. He had his own confidence of success to dare to speak up. He picked out 1,500 people in one go. Going with him were 3 elders. When second elder took out a talisman, the faces of the other elders, including He Xiang, turned uglier. A faint cloud energy was released from his hand, and swam among the Shuzha. In moments, a faint thread of earth energy was around every one of the 1,500 people. Cloud formation silk. The middle-aged person watching from afar exclaimed, he actually possesses cloud formation silk. What is cloud formation silk? The large male saw the middle-aged person lose his composure and couldn't help but ask in curiosity. Cloud formation silk is a very rare talisman. The expression of the middle-aged person was grave. It is not of high grade, just 4th grade. It is made by the Sky Joy Workshop in Cloud Siege who harvest cloud thread to forge into a talisman. It is rare for it to end up outside. Its purpose is very unique. It can create a cloud energy that can defend. Like a Ling shield, the large male asked. Approximately. This cloud energy's defense is not as strong, but it is extremely hard to disperse. Its strength lies in that it can be used on more than one person. Look at them, all of them have a thread of cloud energy on them. The more people there are for this cloud formation silk, the stronger it is. The eyes of the large male flashed. It really is a waste for such a good treasure like this to end up in this person's hands. The tone of the middle-aged person was grave. This isn't good for Golden Crow City. Seeing the large male was unconcerned, he said, the cloud energy isn't strong, but if every person's defense was slightly strengthened, it is very terrifying when it accumulates. The large male thought, and instantly shook. He felt the extraordinariness of the item even more. It really was a great weapon for a large battle. He couldn't help but say, is it possible to buy this cloud formation silk? The middle-aged person shook his head. Cloud Jia is too far from us. The large male was slightly regretful. The public might not know the origins of the cloud formation silk, but the ability of this talisman was easily seen. 1,500 people with this cloud formation silk, the strength of the troop instantly rose up a stage. The complexions of the elders were dark. Second elder possessed such a powerful talisman, but they had never seen it in the many battles before this. Of course, what they cared about the most was that second elder could possibly take down Golden Crow City in one attack. Mo was also shocked. The other's talisman was so strong. In large-scale battles, what was most scary were talismans like cloud formation silk. However, he didn't have much he could think of to do at this point. Fortunately his heart was strong. Even though an unexpected event had occurred, he wasn't in a panic. Second elder's face was filled with smugness. He Xiang, you could never have thought that I would have cloud formation silk. The other elders also were overjoyed. The morale of the 1,500 Xiuzhe grew greatly and they activated their Ling armor. The attributes of each person's Ling armor were all different, and so their colors were naturally different. Watching from a distance, the sky was filled with a dazzling variety of colors. The faint cloud energy was not eye-catching under the light of the Ling armor. Everyone, listen well. Second elder spoke slowly, his voice passing out. This is our last battle. After this battle, we will live in this city. I will reward the first person that charges in with a 4th-grade talisman. Everyone was instantly excited. It was extremely difficult for normal Xiuzhe to obtain a 4th-grade talisman. These Xiuzhe's eyes instantly turned red as they breathed heavily. They felt their blood boil, their desire for battle roiling as they wanted to attack at this exact moment. Seeing that the morale had risen, second elder proudly ordered, attack. 1,500 Xiuzhe howled and exuded killing intent as they charged at Golden Crow City. Everyone pushed their Ling shield to the largest possible. Those Xiuzhe that had defensive talismans took all of them out as they howled and charged at Golden Crow City. In the sky, streak after streak of 5-colored light lit up. 1,500 streaks of light filled the sky. They were eye-catching as they carried killing intent and leapt crazily towards Golden Crow City. Mo sat at the formation battle watchtowers, and did not panic at all. At this time, all of his stray thoughts were thrown to the back of his mind. In his eyes, there were only the enemies that were flying closer. Staring at the enemy, he silently calculated the distance between them. Suddenly, light flashed out of his eyes. He raised his right hand and chopped down heavily. His voice was like the roar of thunder and heard over the entire city. Kill. Chapter 288 Fight. The 36 formation battle watchtowers suddenly light up, the dazzling silver light breaking through the clouds. The outer hall Xiuzhe that were charging felt their vision fill with a snowy brightness, so bright they could not keep their eyes open. The charge of the outer hall Xiuzhe could not avoid pausing. Hundreds of streaks of silver lights shot out of the formation battle watchtowers like sharp swords. Pew pew pew. Dozens of shoujo wailed as they were instantly penetrated by the hard lightning. No matter if it was the cloud energy that flickered around their body, or the Ling shield of the Ling armor, they could not stop the hard lightning for even a moment. Zuemo had used the young fiendish hard lightning as his basis for building the formation battle watchtowers. The power was even stronger than the young fiendish hard lightning that Zuemo himself could cast. How could these shoujo that wore just third-grade Ling armor stop such a destructive attack? The loss of several dozen members was not much towards a troop of 1,500 people. Second elder shouted, "Charge! Don't stop! The speed of the formation battle watchtowers are very slow. Hundred of hard lightning bolts only stopped them for a moment." The middle-aged person that was watching from a distance couldn't help but shake his head. The city master doesn't seem to know how to use formation battle watchtowers. The rhythm isn't right. How so? The large male hurriedly asked. Formation battle watchtowers are powerful, but the time it takes time to prepare. Due to this, the rhythm is extremely important, the middle-aged person said. The 36 formation battle watchtowers can cover for each other, and continuously attack. That way, they can drag down the enemy's rhythm and obtain more time for themselves. So that's it. The large male understood. Golden Crow City's attack didn't hold anything back, firing all at once. There will definitely be a short pause. The middle-aged person stared unblinkingly at Golden Crow City and said, "For the outer hall, this is a chance. If they could get close, even if the formation battle watchtowers start attacking again, they cannot stop the outer hall from advancing." The situation was as he expected. The formation battle watchtowers of Golden Crow City stopped firing. The speed of shoujo was fast to start with, and quickly charged to within 10 li of Golden Crow City. There were occasionally some bolts of hard lightning that shot out of Golden Crow City, and struck a few shoujo, but this kind of scattered attack could not stop the advancing steps of the outer hall shoujo. The morale of the shoujo led by Second Elder rose. Looking as Golden Crow City came closer, everyone became extremely ecstatic. They howled crazily, activating the Ling armor as they raised the flying sword in their hands in anticipation of reaching Golden Crow City and slicing down. There were countless Jingshi and talismans waiting for them. The hard lightning shooting from Golden Crow City was still scattered. Under such a ferocious attack, it seemed so weak and helpless. 8 li. The shoujo that were watching Golden Crow City from a far side. It was over, Golden Crow City was finished. If they went another 4 or 5 li, the outer hall shoujo could attack Golden Crow City. Even a Jindan would not be able to stop the simultaneous attack of 1,500 shoujo, even if it was the accumulated power of a second-grade spell from each person. A Jindan could not destroy 1,500 shoujo. When Jindan could not win, they could run. This meant that he always had the initiative in battle. The coordinated charge of thousands of shoujo was a nightmare once they closed in. Spells and sword energies would rain down, unable to be stopped. All of them could predict the terrible loss that was waiting for Golden Crow City. Second Elder's blood was boiling in his body. He was so excited he was trembling. He would become the first elder to enter Golden Crow City. He could pick 3 talismans of his choosing, the shining accomplishment would give him more power in the outer hall. "Kill," he furiously yelled. "Kill." The shoujo around him all simultaneously bellowed. Zuemo narrowed his eyes. Every formation battle watchtower under him was filled with shoujo at this point. Stand at the positions. Prepare to take over at any moment. Don't hold any energy back. Use everything when you get up. When your Ling power is used up, immediately give up the position. Remember the location of the exit and do not block other people. Don't panic, just be like when we usually practice. Don't aim, just throw at places with more people. Each formation battle watchtower was extremely tense. The faces of every Shouja was grave. They were not afraid. Even though they were captives, they had lived for a long time in Little Mountain Jia. Their discipline had been loose before, but after this recent period of training, they finally looked somewhat acceptable. The backbone of the eastern and western camps had come from Vermilion Bird Camp. They had completely transferred Lil Miss people over. When the last order was issued, every stray noise disappeared. Each person's nerves were tight as they waited for the order from the boss. The 36 formation battle watchtowers were so quiet at this moment it was possible to hear a needle drop to the floor. Zuomo looked at the Shouja covering the sky as they raced closer. Having gotten used to Gongsun Cha's 3-section wave killing charge, there wasn't any ripple in his heart when he saw the enemy's charge. His mind furiously calculated the distance between the two sides. His eyes were looking at the sky without blinking. As the distance grew smaller, the ranks of the other side became tighter as well. The outer hall Shouja furiously flew towards Golden Crow City, but Golden Crow City was only a little city. If they wanted to get close, they naturally had to squeeze towards each other. In the eyes of the spectators, these 1,000 and more Shouja were like a flood when they gathered together. The sound of howling in the air multiplied and shook their souls. The Shouja in the surroundings felt the sky and earth change color, the mountains collapsing, and the earth breaking. Each of them paled. The lips of some of the less brave Shouja uncontrollably trembled. Looking at the others' dense ranks, Zuomo's eyes suddenly became sharp. It seemed to heavily come out of his chest, the killing intent undisguised as it echoed in Golden Crow City. Kill! In an instant, the dim 36 formation battle watchtowers suddenly bursted with light. Countless hard lightning bolts gathered like a silver flood. It was too fast. The outer hall Shouja felt their vision fill with light and were extremely shocked. Before they could react, they felt they had been heavily struck by something. The two opposing waves collided without any finesse. Pia pia pia. The rattle of collisions was like a rushed drum beat. The Shouja at the front that were pierced lost control and their speed dipped. The Shouja in the back did not have the time to slow, and could only stare as they crashed. More than 1,000 people instantly turned to a mess. The hard lightning had arrived so rapidly, no one was able to dodge in time. As their speed had been pushed to their maximum, they did not have the energy to do any other action at this time. Charge over! Charge over! The elders shouted at the top of their lungs. Their faces were slightly pale. Charge! An elder's shout suddenly stopped. 5 bolts of hard lightning hit his Ling shield at the same time. The 4th grade Ling armor broke. He was torn to pieces by the powerful force. The power of hard lightning was clearly displayed at this moment. Normal 3rd grade Ling armor could not stop it. It would frequently penetrate through one Shouja, and the hard lightning would still have enough energy to strike the Ling shield of a second Shouja. The 36 formation battle watchtowers had all concentrated their shots in an area no wider than 10 zhang, and didn't give any space to dodge. This attack came so suddenly and ferociously that the outer hall Shouja were dumbstruck. The 36 formation battle watchtowers had also become chaotic at this time. Don't keep Ling power back, do not aim at a target. Quick, with all possible speed. Faster, faster. Next rotation. Good, go. Several people were to assign to a team that would shoot out as much hard lightning in the shortest time possible before instantly flying away. Then the next team that had already prepared would rush to the set positions and take over in a cycle. Hard lightning continuously flew out from the formation battle watchtowers, and smashed into the ranks of the outer hall that had squeezed into a ball. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the outer hall had fallen, leaving slightly more than 500 people. Second Elder had been struck dumb by this round of fierce attacks. However, he truly was a character, and knew that the situation had reached its most dangerous moment. At this time, He couldn't spare the effort for anything else, and took out all the defensive talismans he had. Several layers of Ling shield appeared on his body. His eyes red, he suddenly charged to the very front. Kill! He was like a wild beast being backed into a precipice. If he lost this battle, there would be no place for him in the outer hall. The hard lightning hit his Ling shield. Pia, one Ling shield broke, a talisman on his body broke. He ignored it, and did not slow down. As Second Elder led the attack, the morale was instantly boosted. Everyone crazily charged towards Golden Crow City. At this time, there were less than 500 people left, so they were not as tightly arranged as they had been. Adding on they deliberately spreading out, the situation instantly turned for the better. The response from Golden Crow City was half a beat slower, and their accuracy rate lowered drastically. The outer hall Xiuzha took the opportunity to get even closer. 3 Li. At this time, they had already entered the attack range of the Xiuzha. The remaining outer hall Xiuzha were even more excited. Even though there were less than 300 people remaining, but everyone believed that the others' moves had all been used. They were only one step away from conquering Golden Crow City. The flying swords they had already prepared were going to be sent out. Sitting on a lucky cloud, Suemo sighed inside. The skill level of the eastern and western camps were still lacking when compared to Vermilion Bird Camp. When the enemy had suddenly scattered just now, their rhythm instantly stumbled. More than half of the hard lightning had missed. If the rhythm hadn't stumbled, the enemy fatalities would be another 100 people. However, he also knew this was the necessary learning process. This string of changes dazzled the eyes of the spectators. They almost forgot to breathe. From the outer hall's confident charge, everyone had thought that Golden Crow City was finished. But the battle situation was completely unexpected. The brief pauses of Golden Crow City's defenses had clearly been planned. That was just a trap dug for the outer hall. When the hard lightning flood and the Xiuzha flood smashed together, everyone's minds went blank. They lost the ability to think. They could only gape as they watched the collision, such a magnificent yet cruel scene. A brutal yet tragically beautiful scene. Then they watched as Second Elder went to charge at the front, the outer hall Xiuzha furiously charging towards Golden Crow City. The presence of the remaining 100 people suddenly became savage. Everyone was dumbstruck where they stood and inhaled sharply. They watched as Second Elder led his people to within a li of Golden Crow City. There was only one thought in everyone's mind. Golden Crow City was finished. But just at this time, in the sky above Golden Crow City, the very center of everyone's attention, the young person sitting on a lucky cloud moved. He stood up. Chapter 289, The Reappearance of the Soundstorm. The city master of Golden Crow City was an extremely mysterious individual. No one knew his origins, and nothing was learned from the spies that the factions had sent in. Before the battle started, this young person had sat on the lucky cloud, a mask-wearing female Xiu standing by his side, his expression calm. From beginning to end, he had only spoken 2 words, kill. He completely didn't realize that he was the center of everyone's attention. No one dared to underestimate this young person. Even if he looked very young, so young that it seemed almost impossible. But no one dared to doubt his abilities. How many people could found such a property in Little Mountain Jie? The trap just now had also been outside of everyone's expectations. The results had also been unexpected. At the most dangerous moment, everyone's hearts suddenly rose for some unexpected reason when they saw him suddenly stand up. After he stood up, Suemo detected that the hard lightning released by the formation battle watchtowers had stabilized again. It was time. His mind moving. Lilith Pagoda, who was connected to his mind, suddenly started to rapidly spin. The light from the golden sun grew, and turned to a flaming ball of fire. The fire followed the threads that dangled down in the sky and spread throughout the formation. When it passed by a ring of light, the ring of light would shake and lightly ring. For some unknown reason, this sound made everyone's hearts jump. It was like a golden Gada's blow, deep and murderous. Clang clang clang. The continuous and rapid string of deep chimes made their minds tremble. Like a relay, the chimes became even deeper and powerful, accompanied by an ethereal chanting that made their hearts beat rapidly. If people from Sky Moon Jia saw this scene, they would definitely recall that scene at the sword test conference. Second Elder's expression changed slightly. As a Ningmai third stratum, his sense of danger was more sensitive. Not good. Clang. Like the ringing of a faraway temple's bell, this ring seemed to strike his heart. The sound was first too soft to hear, but then suddenly rose. The hard and dignified presence was like water breaking through the dam, and sweeping forth unstoppably. The strongest killing move of the Sky Ring Moon Chime Formation, Moon Chime Sound Storm. This, Moon Chime Sound Storm, had tormented the disciples from various sects at the sword test conference. Now that he had added the 4th grade Buddha sound hoop, and the Sky Ring Moon Chime Formation used the 36 formation battle watchtowers as a foundation, it was much stronger than the Sky Ring Moon Chime Formation made that day using metal nails and jade tablets. Zhuemo had also discovered the formation technique of the 4th grade Buddha sound hoop. Buddha chant. The Buddha sound was like a knife that killed without blood. If one wasn't careful, it would corrode their minds and was unable to be dodged. In everyone's eyes, an invisible ripple suddenly exploded outwards with Golden Crow City as the center. The outer hall Shouja were unable to dodge in time and received the full brunt of the attack. No one escaped. Shouja who were slightly weak instantly bled from their orifices, their innards pulverized. Shouja who were stronger, like Second Elder, paled, and their figures couldn't help but pause. This pause was a chance to the Shouja inside Golden Crow City. The hard lightning from every formation battle watchtower instantly smashed towards the remaining Shouja. The Buddha sound in the ears of the Golden Crow City's people was like a blessing from the heavens. Their exhaustion disappeared, and their minds cleared. The energy of the two camps instantly grew. With the aid of the Buddha sound hoops chanting, the Shouja inside the formation battle watchtower performed above their usual skill. The hard lightning they shot was frighteningly accurate. The Shouja who had been wounded by the Buddha sound were at their weakest state. Even if they had the energy to block the hard lightning, they were still penetrated. Bloom after bloom of blood-red blossoms appeared in the sky, and the energy of death rose. After a single wave of hard lightning, there were only a few Shouja left in the sky. Second Elder was one of them. His face was ashen as he looked dazedly at the corpses on the ground. He suddenly raised his head, shouting furiously with all his power, "Master of Golden Crow City! Do you dare fight?" On the lucky cloud, Zhuemo rolled his eyes. Idiot! Even Silly Bird couldn't resist rolling her eyes at Second Elder. Zhuemo saw there was no noise from below him, and was very discontent. He shouted down, "What are you doing standing around? Do you want to invite him in for dinner?" The formation battle watchtowers below had a ruckus. Whoosh, a large patch of hard lightning flew out and dazzled the eyes. Second Elder's eyes were open very wide, his face filled with disbelief. There were at least a dozen hard lightning bolts that struck him. He stared fixedly at Golden Crow City, as he dropped from the sky like a bag of sand. The 1,500 people had all been killed. The outer hall Shouja lost their capabilities of speech. Each of them had pale white faces. They had had smooth sailing previously, and had only needed to use the slightest of efforts to flatten the factions that had tried to resist. They had never encountered such fierce fighting before. Outside the Golden Crow City, more than 1,000 burnt black corpses were scattered everywhere. Dismembered limbs and flesh could be seen everywhere. The Ling power turbulence lingering in the air reminded everyone just how cruel and fierce the fight had been. Even He Xiang, who wanted Second Elder to die, did not feel any joy right now. His face was as pale as paper. He had finally realized how idiotic his optimistic prediction had been. This bone was much harder than they had imagined. The dark circle of spectators was also completely silent. They had remained here because they wanted to see a good fight, but right now, they were shocked by the fierceness of this fight. Usually, everyone would charge up together, furiously competing to take the spoils from the corpses. But looking at the mountains of corpses, they had no impulse at all. They only dazedly looked. The middle-aged person and the large man also had dazed faces. They were also shocked. Yaomao were rampaging about now. Everyone knew that large-scale battles could not be avoided. But when they finally saw a large-scale battle, they found that these battles were far crueler than they could imagine. What is the use of individual bravery? The large man sighed emotionally with slight dejection. For a long time, increasing individual strength and going to Bloody Sky Metropolis Jia to become famous was the path to success of every young shoujo. Now, he found that the individual strength they had pursued with such hardship was almost ineffective in large-scale battles. The middle-aged person knew the large man had received a blow and urged, "Darren, there is no need to be demotivated. If a Jindan came, the results would be completely the opposite." The large man's expression cheered up slightly. Upon further thought, he found that it was right. If a Jindan came, they would have defeated this city long ago. They had all seen the strength of Jindan experts before. Even such a strong city would probably be unable to stop the steps of a Jindan expert. Contrasting the deathly silence, the cheers coming from inside Golden Crow City rolled into the surroundings. In reality, Golden Crow City was also on its last legs. The Ling power of the two camps was almost completely used up. If they didn't have so many people, with such ferocity and unfettered disregard of the consequences as they released the waves of hard lightning, they would have quickly left all of the shoujo unable to even stand up. Lilth Pagoda was drooping. That moon chime sound storm had used all of its power. Suemo carried it in his hand with heartache. He had to throw a few talismans to it before it recovered some energy. "Good son, Daddy knows you are the best." Lilth Pagoda was very happy at receiving praise and twirled in Suemo's palm. Silly Bird looked disdainfully at Suemo. That disdain seemed to say, "Fooling little child." Suemo faltered slightly. However, he decided to disregard this unlikable person. He couldn't help but mutter inside, Silly Bird's expressions were becoming increasingly varied. It seemed she had gained many benefits this time. Scanning Silly Bird, Suemo increasingly felt this one was fat and rich. He wondered if he could squeeze some oil out. Seeming to detecting the danger coming from Suemo, Silly Bird hurriedly increased her distance from Suemo. Lil Fire, on the opposite hand, found it fun and chirped. Like a bubble, it slowly flew over to join the fun. "Boss," outside the city, Bao Yi put out his head and twisted his lips at the outside. Outside the city? Suemo's expression was puzzled, and then he realized. He rubbed his chin and said, "Get the guard camp to go." Shu Long's expression was stern as he methodically listened to the shoujo that came to pass on orders. In reality, his attention was completely focused on the bellows coming from inside the necklace. "First mission, all of you, pay attention. Whoever makes a mistake, whoever makes me lose face, just wait. As the first batch of subordinates of this seat for nearly 1,000 years, if you humiliate my name as a Sky Yao, I will kill all of you. Once out of the city, instantly assemble in the formation. Take out everything you have trained." Usually, seeing the shoujo who had delivered the orders leave, Shu Long swallowed and said, "But Darren, boss orders is only for us to take the spoils, my ass. Using the troop of a honored Sky Yao to do something like pick up trash. I cannot bear the embarrassment. Listen well, this mission is your monthly test. If you make a mistake, there will be good days for you next month." His heart shook, and coldness shot up from the bottom of his feet. The monthly test was the most terrible days in a month. Every time it occurred, wails rang into the landscape. This Darren was not some generous one. It would be more accurate to describe him as one that would always get even. If they provoked him this time, everyone could not live in the future. Also, in the deepest part of his heart, he wanted Boss to see their results. Even though they did not have to worry about food, shelter, there was no hard labor, and they only cultivated every day, but whenever danger approached the boss would never think of the existence of guard camp. All of guard camp were holding a breath. They knew their foundations were terrible, and their strength weak. They could not do anything major. Consequently, everyone cultivated using their life. Injuries due to cultivation were the most frequent event in guard camp. This breath was like an invisible whip furiously striking them. Had their day finally come? Under Shu Long's weathered face, his heart started to ripple. He adjusted the Ling armor on his body and suppressed his excitement. He tried to make his steps as steady as usual and walked out of the tent. Outside the tent, everyone in guard camp had finished gathering. Everyone had excited expressions. It was possible to see that they were trying their best to suppress their excitement. Looking at the organized troop with new uniforms, Shu Long suddenly blanked. The scenes of the past flowed like water past his eyes. Panicked and in a sorry state as they huddled together, their clothing unable to cover their bodies, their hopeless and dead eyes. He took a deep breath and tightened his grip on the talisman on his hand. All of the scenes in his mind instantly shattered. Looking at the gazes full of life, his gaze became determined as he ordered. Depart. Chapter 290, The guard camp steps onto the stage. He Xiang's heart was beating like a drum. The other elders were all pale. They had not recovered from watching the battle just now. 1,500 people had all died. Their power instantly shrank by 1/5. The corpses scattered across the mountains made it seem like a hellish landscape. The elders who had been scrambling for the opportunity to attack the city first were now filled with fear. If it had been them. Truthfully, second elder had performed very well. He had a great weapon in the cloud formation silk, he had the bravery to lead from the front. None of the elders here could have performed better than he had, but he still died. The whole troop had died. It wasn't that he hadn't performed well, but the enemy was too strong. What kind of formation battle watchtower was that? The hard lightning it released seemed endless like a tide. If it wasn't that they had seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't believe that there were such powerful formation battle watchtowers in this world. Even if there were, how could they appear in this minuscule little mountain yet? If this came out, how could everyone live? And that sky ring moon chime formation, could that still even be called the sky ring moon chime formation? Bro, you weren't the only one that played around with a sky ring moon chime formation before, are you sure that what you have is still a sky ring moon chime formation? The elders looked at Golden Crow City with sorrowful rage. Bro, be nice, you are so strong, don't come running to Little Mountain Jia to steal food from us little people. Why? Even He Xiang didn't know what to do next. Continue to fight? He looked at the elders around him. Every one of them was dispirited and had lost their courage. Even if there was an elder that had the courage to attack, the people under them wouldn't be willing. He could clearly feel the morale of his troops had reached bottom. But with everyone watching them, he felt he couldn't retreat like this and lose face. Just as He Xiang was struggling with his dilemma, Golden Crow City acted again. Many people suddenly appeared on top of the walls of Golden Crow City and jumped down from the walls. He Xiang's eyes widened as he stared in disbelief at the people continuously jumping down from Golden Crow City's walls. Were they going to attack? For an unknown reason, he suddenly shook. He turned to look at the other elders and stilled again. The elders that had surrounded him had all disappeared. Only when he turned his face around did he see that they had retreated 3 zhang away from him. Terror was on everyone's faces. The movement of Golden Crow City had attracted everyone's attention. The Xiuzha that were watching from afar moved their eyes towards this group of people that flooded out of Golden Crow City. This group of people were all wearing black heavy armor, but their movements were light and agile. After watching for a while, everyone had puzzled expressions. Almost no one used heavy armor among the various types of Ling armor because the majority of Xiuzha battles were in the air. The heavy Ling armor would greatly affect their speed. The popular Ling armors were mostly light and carved with formations to be activated during battle. Usually, the defensive abilities of the Ling armor were not reliant on the Ling armor itself, but depended on the strength of the Ling shield activated from the Ling armor. It was possible to see that the black Ling armor on these people was very heavy. Only body-cultivating Xiuzha could support such heavy Ling armor. Looking at the nimble movements of these people, they did seem like body-cultivating Xiuzha. There was a continuous stream of armor-wearing Xiuzha jumping off the city walls. Their movements were extremely quick, and well-trained, flowing like water. A group of Xiuzha quickly gathered outside the city, and when the number of Xiuzha reached 1,000 people, the spectators all inhaled sharply. He Xiang and the others had ashen faces. Who said that Golden Crow City didn't have many people? It was very hard to calculate how many people were needed to man the 36 formation battle watchtowers, but it definitely wasn't less than 1,000 people. Now, 1,000 body-cultivating Xiuzha had come out. How many people were really hiding inside Golden Crow City? He Xiang didn't even have the energy to swear. The other elders could only stare at each other. 1,000 heavy armor Xiuzha quickly gathered, their movements clean and without any fuss. In a short span, they finished organizing their formation. 1,000 armor-wearing Xiuzha stood solemnly without a sound. All noise had disappeared. The wind blew past and stirred the dust and dried leaves to swirl in the air. The killing intent was as cold as a knife. The 1,000 people were like a heavy rock pressing on everyone's chest, making them unconsciously feel that breathing was slightly difficult. Xu Long had a small headache. First, they could not resist Boss' mission. Boss had told them to collect the spoils. If he went on a different path, Boss definitely would not be happy. Even he wasn't willing to do so. However, the words of the Darren inside the necklace could not be dismissed. That was his direct teacher. If that person was offended, his days would become very dark. His mind suddenly moved and had an idea. The people that were paying attention to the black armor troop were of two different opinions. One side chided the master of Golden Crow City for being so dim to create such a trashy troop. No matter if it was Sword Xiu or Diana Xiu, they emphasized the ability to fly. The mainstream battlefield was the sky. If this group of people flew up into the air, they would be like turtles, only able to wait for death. The other side was very curious. Up until now, every move of the master of Golden Crow City made people feel amazed. How could such a person make such a shallow and low-level mistake? There had to be a deeper meaning. The middle-aged person and the large male held the second opinion. It's very hard to say with precedent, the eyes of the middle-aged person flashed as he said gravely. Only people that can break convention are true heroes. The large male stared at the black armor troop outside the Golden Crow City. Other people might feel that this troop was hilarious, but he had seen true elite forces before. This troop couldn't be called elite, but it seemed to have a presence that others could not dismiss. Other people might not concern themselves with this, but the large male knew it wasn't so easy to form such a presence. This master of Golden Crow City was really talented. The eyes of the large male became even hotter. Hardship Guard was an extreme MO skill. It wasn't possible to cultivate unless one had perseverance. If they could tolerate pain, the progress was far faster than any other MO skill. When that king first obtained Hardship Abyss, he had felt it wasn't bad, but thought that it didn't progress quickly enough. He didn't have the patience to slowly nurture his personal guard, so he had made the appropriate changes to the skill and made the newly formed Hardship Guard. It became a quick MO skill, but the pain involved naturally multiplied. To the king, he had countless people. Even if the elimination rate was astounding, he didn't care at all. He probably would never have thought that this MO skill would one day be given to a group of Xiu slaves. These Xiu slaves had gone through many hands. Those that could survive were those with resilience. Also, Pu Yao naturally didn't have any kind of emotions like pity. To prove the value of Sky Yao, he had furiously urged them on. Today was the first time the guard camp showed themselves. What did this weird troop want to do? Just as everyone was puzzled, they saw the organized ranks suddenly spread out. Each troop was like a stream of water, suddenly turning to 10 smaller flows. With 36 of them to a platoon, they quickly sprinted among the mountain. Their speed was very fast, the heavy armor on their body seemed to not affect them at all. What was most praiseworthy was that even at such fast speeds, the shape of the troop was not affected at all. At the top of Golden Crow City, Zhua Mo made a small sound of surprise. After working with formations for so long, he was abnormally sensitive to formations. With one glance, he recognized the platoon of 36 people were maintaining a kind of battle formation. His mind moving, he opened his Ling eyes. Above each little troop, black energy shifted like dozens of black serpents swimming around, brimming with killing intent. Zhua Mo instantly jumped in fright. What battle formation was this? The killing intent in this formation was so heavy that Zhua Mo had never seen anything comparable. Even the killing intent of Gongsun Cha's Vermilion Bird Camp was far less than the guard camp's present battle formation. As expected, Pu Yao still had a trick up his sleeve. Zhua Mo rubbed his chin as he thought. Sweat continued to flow down Shu Long's head as he heard the Darren inside the necklace bellow. What have you trained? Ah! This is only the 36-person little MO kill, you've only gotten to this. Then that 1,000 people great MO kill, can you even train? Pu Yao didn't have any of the composure that he had in front of Zhua Mo. His shouts were like thunder and made Shu Long's heart tremble. He was clearly very dissatisfied. Shu Long's orders quickly passed to every little team. Everyone's heart shook. Already full of desire for battle, they raised themselves to 120% of their usual attentiveness. The killing intent of each platoon became even more tangible. At this time, even the Xiuzha who didn't have Ling eyes could see the extraordinary aspects. Such keen killing intent. For the first time, the middle-aged person had a shocked expression. His expression was grave as he said, "This formation has the heaviest killing intent that this subordinate has seen in life. I wonder who could create such a vicious formation. Any formation that can kill people is a good formation." The large male was very liberal with this point. He stared attentively at the constant movements of the black armor camp guards. The killing intent was tangible. There were black snakes that seemed to be flipping above the heads of each platoon and inspired fear when looked upon. The people that had been mocking Zhua Mo before were gaping now as their hearts beat rapidly. Even though they had not seen this black armor guard troops attack, but just this shocking killing intent was enough to rob many of their courage. As powerful as expected. Zhua Mo, who possessed the Ling Eye, could see more clearly than the others. Once they were touched, the killing intent that had turned to black serpents would instantly coil around the enemy. Each platoon was like a wild beast that devoured people. Inside the killing formation, the pupils of each camp guard had turned bloody red, and exuded a terrifying presence. If it wasn't that they cultivated hardship guard, and had indefatigable personalities, they would have broken under such dense killing intent. Zhua Mo couldn't help but be curious what it would be like if this battle formation encountered an enemy. He really wanted to go ask Pu Yao, but if he went to ask at this time, that guy's nostrils would face the sky. He ended the thought. Suddenly, he finally responded. Didn't I tell them to go strip the talismans? What are they rehearsing for? Upon second thought, when he looked at the ground full of corpses and scattered talismans, Zhua Mo instantly was furious. It definitely was Pu Yao that was the culprit. So much Jingshi. Just as he was going to swear, he suddenly saw out of the corner of his eye dozens of sword lights flew in from the horizon. Chapter 291, Hong Jun Xian. Dozens of Shouja with flying swords under their feet and their bodies flashing with light, their faces cold, landed among the outer sect disciples. The first among them pointed and started to scold He Xiang just as he stopped. He Xiang! You have guts. Eldest Shi Xiang was killed. You dare to conceal this and not report it. He instantly ignored He Xiang's explanation, his face cold as he swept the other elders. This seat is old forefather's second disciple Hong Jun Xian. Starting from now, this seat will be managing the outer hall. Anyone that disobeys will be killed. The expressions of the other elders all changed, but no one dared to speak up. Many of them had seen Hong Jun Shuang before. This seat will give you a chance to make up for your crimes. Hong Jun Xian's eyes were filled with killing intent. He pointed at the guard camp outside of Golden Crow City and said darkly, "This seat will permit you to take 1,000 people. If you can defeat this group of country bumpkins, I will pardon your crimes. If any of you do not dare to fight, then don't blame this seat for being unmerciful." The faces of the elders were ashen. They didn't know the battle capabilities of that troop, but the killing intent was so dense their hearts trembled. They couldn't gather up any courage when they looked. What? Hong Jun Xian's face grew even colder. You are not willing. The other Clear Sky sect disciples also looked with unfriendliness. If He Xiang and the others dared to make the slightest move to rebel, they would act. He Xiang's face was like ash. He knew that he didn't have the chance to change anything now. Clear Sky sect's patience with them had reached its limited. He said difficulty, "I'm willing." There was only one route left to him, seeking life in death. Hong Jun Xian and the others wouldn't give them any other route. As to escape, he never thought about it. No matter how big Little Mountain Jie was, there wasn't another place that would take him in. Seeing He Xiang speak, the gazes of the other elders were undecided, especially the few elders with Ningmai third stratum cultivation who now had thoughts of fleeing. But the Clear Sky sect disciples had encircled them. They also knew that escape would not be so simple. They silently stood next to He Xiang. Hate flashed across the eyes of the Clear Sky sect disciples like Hong Jun Xian. The death of Huang Zhuoguang was like a lightning bolt on a clear day for Clear Sky sect. These Clear Sky sect disciples mostly idolized eldest Shi Xiang. The death of eldest Shi Xiang, especially in Little Mountain Jie where they had never felt there was any danger before, was unacceptable to them. He Xiang knew explaining would not be useful. He didn't speak and picked 1,000 people. The sudden arrival of the Clear Sky sect disciples instantly caused the battlefield that had relaxed to become tense again. Everyone's eyes gathered on Hong Jun Xian's body. This made Hong Jun Xian feel excited like he had never been before. Eldest Shi Xiang wasn't here, so it was now his turn. He had waited for this day for a long time. If he could take down this city, control of Little Mountain Jie would land back in the hands of the sect, his status would rise with this accomplishment and would certainly take eldest Shi Xiang's place as the new leader of the younger generation of disciples. As to He Xiang and the others, they were useless in his eyes. If it wasn't for them, the situation of Little Mountain Jie would never have gotten to such a terrible state. The Clear Sky sect disciples are like this, they really cannot be cured. The large male shook his head, his tone filled with unspeakable dislike. Those whom the heavens wish to destroy, they first make mad. Darren should not argue with them. The middle-aged person laughed lightly. That's true. The large male nodded, and then had an expression of anticipation. That's a good thing. This way, I can see just where this black armor troop is special. It wasn't just the spectators that saw the change in the outer hall. Xu Long had also noticed it. His expression instantly became solemn. Glancing at Boss on the top of Golden Crow City, he conversed in a low voice with the Darren in the necklace. Darren, they seem to want to attack. Attack? The voice of the Darren inside the necklace instantly became excited. Good. Very good. Kill. Kill all of them. Shu Long jumped in fright. This Darren's killing intent was really strong. However, he didn't take the words seriously. He examined the situation and saw there was no time to gather the spoils of victory. He instantly became slightly depressed. Boss had sent them to scalp, but it seemed that they could not finish the mission now. Shu Long was very discontent that they could not complete the first mission that Boss gave the guard camp. But at this moment, he knew what was more important. The other had divided out 1,000 people. It definitely wasn't to invite them to a meal. He did not hesitate and ordered for the platoons to gather. The guard camp that had spread out on the ground instantly gathered with Shu Long as the center. Shu Long seemed to be a great magnet to attract them to him. The heavy black armor was not a hindrance. Even though they could not fly, but each person's movements were nimble. With a few jumps, they returned to the camp formation. Suemo nodded on the inside as he sat on the lucky cloud. Shu Long was quite dependable. He didn't speak, but had the formation battle watchtowers prepared to give aid at any time. Any troop would be useless in the end if they did not undergo real battle. Before, he had assumed that the guard camp wouldn't show any results after such a short period of time. Now, he found that the progress of guard camp far had surpassed his imagination, and instantly felt some confidence. That short encounter just now had almost consumed all of the battle capabilities of the eastern and western camps. The aid that the formation battle watchtowers could give was limited. Suemo could only direct them to hurry and recover Ling power. He was also very curious what powerful moves guard camp had. With his understanding of Puyao, if this guy didn't have a grasp of the situation, he definitely wouldn't come out to embarrass himself. Puyao could only ever do one thing, show off. The guard camp merged back with their fastest possible speed. Shu Long did not order for them to return to the city, but to prepare to welcome the enemy outside the city walls. They have their test, and you have yours. The words of the Darren in the necklace caused Shu Long to pale in fright. I've taught so much. If you worked hard, you should be able to deal with this kind of minor situation. Pu Yao's voice didn't hold any emotion. If you can't deal with it, you don't need to live. Your boss might be soft-hearted, but if you are useless, you would only be a burden. Shu Long wasn't angry. He was several decades old, and had been a Xiu slave for more than 20 years. What pain hadn't he encountered, what hadn't he seen? Darren's words were not pleasing to hear, but they were not wrong. He tightened the black armor on his body, and raised his head. Determination was the only thing remaining in his eyes. If they couldn't deal with something as minor as this, how could they face boss? He slowly scanned around him and said in a deep voice, "This is our first battle. I know everyone has waited for this day for a long time. We cultivated with our lives, for what? For this battle. Even if we die today, we need to build up the reputation of the guard camp." His voice was not loud, but every person in guard camp was suddenly full of passion. Suemo could not hear their words. He looked with shock at the roiling black energy above guard camp suddenly become somewhat stronger. It became as black as ink in his eyes. Even he couldn't help but have a strong feeling of danger. Such a powerful battle formation. Suemo was stunned. An eerie purple light suddenly lit up in the eyes of the female Xiu as she stared at the guard camp. With his Ling eyes, he saw threads of black energy sprout out of each camp guard. As the black energy came out, it would enter the formation, and swim inside the formation. In the blink of an eye, the formation was filled with countless small threads of black energy. "Let's go," He Xiang said heavily. The other elders silently took out their flying swords and activated their Ling armor. Behind them, 1,000 Shouja took out their Ling armor and activated it as well. The sky was once again covered in light of various colors. Everyone's gazes once again gathered on these two troops that were going to collide. Based on strength, the outer hall definitely was at an advantage. Their Ling armor was far better than the heavy armor of guard camp in the eyes of many Shouja. It was the first time they had seen people use such clumsy and rough heavy armor. Based on individual power, the outer hall was at an even greater advantage. There were several Ningmai third stratum Shouja among the outer hall elders. As for the guard camp, even though the scripture they cultivated was very obscure, their individual power was average, and there was no eye-catching expert. Many people unconsciously glanced at Sui Mo and shook their heads. Hong Jun Xian smirked icily. Heavy armor, they still think this is thousands of years ago. They even managed to come up with something like this antique. Who told me that they are very rich? So many from the outer hall have been killed by this group. Trash is trash. Even if they entered our clear sky sect, they would not be acceptable. That's true. They can't compare to Shixiang. It's easy now that Shixiang is in command, a shitty flattered. Not just Golden Crow City. Even if there was a few more, Shixiang can easily conquer them. Hong Jun Xian was content. When we take down this city, everyone's service will be repaid. Shixiang is wise. We can only benefit from association from following Shixiang. The other shitty flattered Hong Jun Xian. Hong Jun Xian's ego was satisfied like it never had been before. He waved a hand. Let's see just how useful this group of trash is. The other people's eyes all turned to Xiang. Let's kill. Xiang didn't waste words, and took his sword to charge at the very front. The other elders didn't speak either and tightly followed. The 1,000 Shouja didn't dare to disobey. Piercing howls sounded in the air. The light was like rain as they leapt towards the guard camp outside Golden Crow City. 10 li. No move. The silver flood that everyone had predicted did not appear. This made everyone feel surprised. Maybe the power of the formation battle watchtowers have been used up. The middle-aged person was puzzled. Or the master of Golden Crow City has full confidence in this troop. The large male's face was both shocked and doubtful. Both possibilities were extremely likely, but they represented completely different meanings. Xiang and the elders had been planning to face the rain of hard lightning, and hadn't expected that Golden Crow City did not shoot even one bolt after flying for a while. This caused them to be overjoyed. Morale exploded. The elders that had been planning to flee instantly felt assured. The outer hall Shouja behind them instantly became confident. What they were most afraid of was the hard lightning. Now that the biggest threat was gone, the other side was just some bumpkins dressed in heavy armor. What was there to be afraid of? Yes. What was there to be afraid of? Having seen the hope of survival, Xian's desire for battle suddenly boiled. He shouted, "Kill! Kill! Kill!" 1,000 outer hall Shouja shouted together, "Kill!" 7 li. 5 li. 3 li. The Shouja that were diving down began magnifying with astounding speed in Shu Long's vision. The Mo skill ramped up to the limits. Shu Long opened his eyes. In his blood-red eyes, a dash of black energy flashed past like a black knife. He suddenly shouted, "Kill!" Chapter 292, Little Mo Kill. Shu Long ramped up his Mo skill to its limit. Countless threads of black energy rapidly burrowed inside his body. His body quickly expanded, forcibly growing more than 1 qi in height. The weathered face became vicious and authoritative at this moment, the black armor and red eyes shocking people's hearts. It wasn't just him. The camp guards beside him all shouted, each of them growing taller. What weird scripture is this? The large male gaped with wide eyes. It is not clear. The face of the middle-aged person was serious. It's a bit like the ghost general arrival, of the Ghost Formation sect, and Divine Staff Beating Technique of Diana Shio. There are many sects that have these kind of secret methods. They had been glorious during the 1,000-Year War, but not many have survived until now. Why hasn't more of it remained? This kind of secret method emphasizes killing, with less focus on cultivating the body and skills that create wealth, like forging or dan-making. It's natural that they would decline more quickly, the middle-aged person explained quickly, his eyes tightly locked onto the battlefield. It was another scene in Zhuo Mo's Ling eyes. Each camp guard was shrouded in black energy like numerous slender black serpents swimming around their body. An even higher pitched howl suddenly sounded. The outer hall Xiuzhe simultaneously sent out sword energies. Countless sword energies of various colors were like an enormous and dense school of multicolored fish howling as they leapt towards guard camp. The scene of 1,000 Xiuzhe simultaneously releasing sword energies was very spectacular. Those who saw this scene all felt their hearts shake. After Xu Long's bellow, all of the guard camp sank into a strange silence. The thick killing intent also disappeared. At this time, Zhuo Mo couldn't help but have a shocked expression. The black energy was tightly restrained inside the big formation. It was like a wild beast that was trapped in a cage. It furiously smashed against the cage. However, Xu Long and the others seemed familiar with these black energies and dismissed them, staying in their positions, and allowing them to charge. It was only when the sword energy attacks had reached their heads that Xu Long had shouted, "Kill!" His "kill" was not loud, but it had an unique rhythm, deep and restrained. The big formation of the guard camp suddenly moved. The rampaging black energy inside the formation seemed to be unwilling to be used. They furiously rampaged inside the formation, but it was useless. The guard camp wearing black armor were expressionless as they marched with determined steps. As the camp guards quickly marched inside the formation, an invisible force formed inside the formation, and carried the black energy to accelerate. An enormous whirlpool appeared above guard camp. The whirlpool darkened at a rate visible to the naked eye. The dense killing intent once again was revealed. The sword energies that were like rain in the sky seemed to be attracted by a strong force and were pulled towards the whirlpool. The faces of the outer hall Xiuzhe changed. They lost control of their sword energies. How was it possible? The great majority of them had never encountered such a strange situation before. The rain of sword energies entered the whirlpool made from black energy and disappeared without a trace. The entire battlefield was deathly silent. Everyone looked dazedly at the enormous black whirlpool that was silently churning above the guard camp. What is that?" the large male exclaimed in shock. The middle-aged person was so shocked he couldn't speak. How was it possible? How could such a powerful formation appear in Little Mountain Jie? The master of Golden Crow City truly had extraordinary origins. If it wasn't a sect more than 700 or 800 years old, they definitely could not possess such a terrifying battle formation. Which sect did this person come from? Why did he come to Little Mountain Jie? Did he have the same goals as they did? 100 thoughts ran through his head. The expression of the middle-aged person was also uncertain. Hong Jun Xian looked at the enormous whirlpool and his expression changed. His interest in watching flew away. He Xiang and the others were shocked. The slowly moving black whirlpool above guard camp was like an ancient beast that could consume everything. 1,000 sword energies had silently been swallowed inside. As expected, there was something strange. He Xiang gritted his teeth. "Let's go closer. They cannot stop our flying swords." The other Xiuzhe had hesitant expressions, but Hong Jun Xian and the others were behind them. If they retreated at this time, they would definitely be executed by the sword. Only by charging forward was there a possibility of survival. The elders exchanged looks. Without wasting words, they channeled their Ling power. Seeing the situation, the 1,000 people behind them could only follow behind. What reassured them was that they were in the sky, and that strange troop clearly was not suited to flight, so they could not do anything. If they were careful, and didn't go near the black whirlpool, there shouldn't be a problem. He Xiang led the approach. His heart was slightly drumming. This troop was too strange. The black whirlpool looked extremely shocking. Their hearts beat rapidly. Unexpectedly, the whirlpool did not react to them as they neared. Maybe this whirlpool was only effective against things like sword energies. Everyone's courage grew a few fractions. They tried to go closer. As expected, there was no effect. Now their hearts were greatly reassured. The other people also saw, and for some unknown reason, the middle-aged person unconsciously released a breath. This vicious formation had given him pressure he had never felt before, pushing on his chest like a heavy rock. Such a powerful killing formation should not appear in Little Mountain Jie. Only Zhuai Mo could see the profoundness involved. The black whirlpool had become even bigger after absorbing so many sword energies. Even more terrifying was that the enlarged black energy passed into the formation. The black energy inside the formation was more than 10 times as dense as it had been, Zhuai Mo couldn't move his eyes away. For an unknown reason, he suddenly thought of the 9-turn sky soil disk's earth mist. The earth mist had been as heavy as a mountain, and this black energy was vicious and brutal. Inside the formation, Xu Long and the others were wrapped in thick black energy. The threads that had been like snakes before, but now it was like they were swimming in black water. The closer it was to them, the thicker the black energy. The sound of the black whirlpool was still shocking, but in Zhuai Mo's eyes, it shows signs of fading. Was it? Zhuai Mo's mind moved. At this time, Xu Long roared again, "Kill!" Everyone's heart jumped. Before they could respond, they heard the 1,000 camp guards roar, "Kill!" The killing intent that was let loose was like a fierce tiger that had left its cage, roaring and unstoppable. The organized troop suddenly spread out. Each platoon was like a ball of black cloud that spread into the surroundings. At the same time, dozens of black serpents flew out of the formation, twisting as their barrel-thick bodies leapt towards the outer hall Xiuzhe in the air. Hiss hiss hiss. The stream of serpents hissing made everyone's scalp prickle. The spectators only saw dozens of enormous black serpents that were dozens of Zhang Longs suddenly leaping out of the black whirlpool, bearing their black fangs as they charged at the outer hall Xiuzhe in the air. The distance between the two sides was not far. The enormous black serpents were like arrows leaving the bow. With an unstoppable presence, it charged in front of the Xiuzhe. A blurry black shadow suddenly shot before him, He Xiang's head rang and then blanked. He was not the only one. None of the elders managed to react. Whoosh! A fishy wind blew past. The pain they imagined did not come. He Xiang shook and suddenly woke up. He found that he was surrounded in a patch of black. A strange terror filled his heart. He swallowed difficulty. Where was this? Cold and murderous without a hint of life, he seemed to be located in a void. Loneliness and terror continued to charge at his heart's defenses like waves. Calm, he had to remain calm. This definitely was an illusion. He Xiang repeatedly told himself and tried to calm down. A voice full of killing intent suddenly passed into the void. Kill! He suddenly felt an enormous pain from his back. When he lowered his head, he found to his terror a hand shrouded in black energy had emerged halfway out of his chest. Why? His mind dropped into an endless darkness. Su Long felt the temperature inside his body was astoundingly high. He seemed to be burning to ashes. He could only grit his teeth and bear it. It was common to encounter this kind of situation when they cultivated hardship guard. Just now, he had activated the Mo skill to kill He Xiang in one blow. However, he did not have any joy at this moment. There was only a furious desire for battle in his heart. He once again raised his palm. His entire palm was wrapped in thick black energy. His eyes became even more red. A heart-boring pain passed from his right arm, but his arm did not shake at all. Any kind of power could not come out of thin air. To gain power, one had to pay. With a safe scripture, what was paid was time. For a quick scripture, even though it saved time, it required payment of other things. Kill. A deep roar squeezed out of his chest. He suddenly flipped his palm, his fingers turning to claws as he grabbed towards a shouja in the air. A black palm left his hand, and suddenly imprinted on one shouja's chest and passing through as though the dazzling Ling shield seemed to not exist. This black palm easily passed through. This shouja's body shook, and then his vitality instantly disappeared as he dropped down. What the outsiders saw was a very strange scene. When the black serpents were just going to collide with the shouja troop, they suddenly turned to a ball of black energy, and covered all of the shouja. The shouja covered in the black energy seemed to freeze like puppets in the air. Balls of black energy instantly flew out of the guard camp below them and hit the frozen outer hall shouja. The shouja in the sky dropped, like dumplings into a pot. When some shouja were still dropping from the air, their corpses were already gray and without life. Pia pia pia. Outer hall shouja continued to drop. In a few short breaths, nothing was left in the sky. No shouja had escaped. The outer hall troops had all been defeated again, including all of their elders. The elders tried to struggle but inside the black energy, they were like headless flies. They flew randomly, but still could not escape. In the end, they were hit with dozens of black energy balls. The entire battle was so short it was unimaginable, so clean and crisp it was terrifying. 1,000 people versus 1,000 people. One side was completely obliterated in the blink of an eye, and the other side had no fatalities at all. Everyone did not feel shock anymore, but instead felt terror. Deep terror. This group of people dressed in black armor was as terrifying as Yaoma. No, even if it were Yaoma, they definitely could not kill 1,000 shouja so easily. Hong Junxian's face was bloodless, and as white as paper. He unconsciously opened his mouth but did not produce any sound. At his side, the calves of the other Clear Sky sect disciples uncontrollably trembled. Even the large male and the middle-aged person had fearful expressions. Who were they? What was that black energy? What was that battle formation? That you're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.